Well, welcome everybody to the April 14th, 2020 remote meeting of the Millbrae City Council. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Lee. Councilmember Lee.
Present.
Councilmember Pappen.
Here.
Councilmember Oliva.
Here.
Vice Mayor Schneider.
Present.
Mayor Holliber.
Present.
All council members are present.
Okay, can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done.
Everyone had a flag here. Okay, we have to begin several ceremonial presentations. I don't have the proclamations in front of me, and due to the venue that we are using online, I'm not going to go through and read them one by one. But just to make the announcements, we are proclaiming March 25th, 2020 as Greek Independence Day. We're proclaiming the month of April as Rosacea National Awareness Month. We are proclaiming April also as Celebrate Diversity Month. We are proclaiming April 22nd, 2020 as Arbor and Earth Day. We are proclaiming April 24th, 2020 as Armenian Remembrance Day. And we are proclaiming City of Millbrae United Against Racism and Xenophobia during the COVID-19 pandemic. And if anybody has a few words they would like to say about any of those items.
Yes.
Okay, we could start with Councilwoman Pappen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I truly appreciate the inclusion of Greek Independence Day and the Armenian awareness resolutions, things in history that we need to acknowledge and remember fully are extremely important so that we do not repeat the mistakes of the past. So thank you on behalf of the Greek American community and the Armenian American community. Thank you to the entire council.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other
However, my hand's up. I don't know if you can see that.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, Vice Mayor Schneider.
I just want to, for the public out there, if any public is watching, if you're on Nextdoor, you will hear more information about Earth Day activities you can do at home. This breaks my heart that we can't do Earth Day because I know that our community loves planting trees. We will catch up with that. No matter the economy, we will catch up. But go to Nextdoor, there'll be a number of different activities you can do at home to celebrate Mother Earth and get our houses in order and get ready for fire safety time, all kind of tied in with Earth Day. But happy Earth Day to everyone, and be safe out there and make your backyards a wildlife sanctuary.
Great. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Any other comments?
Yeah, Councilmember Lee.
Okay, yes, Councilman Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also, I just want to piggyback on the Vice Mayor. Vice Mayor and I also are on the fire subcommittee. It's the Vice Mayor had this great idea about taking it, because we're at home, taking the time to clear our defensible spaces in our backyards, particularly if you live in the high brush area. You can call the fire department if you need their non-emergency number if you have questions. I'm sure we'll put that on our city website soon. There are plenty of references online about defensible space. And because we're in a drought year, I think that's more pretty critical time to think about that. I think that falls in the Arbor Earth Day. Also, just want to also recognize the city for our and other cities taking the initiative to denounce racism and xenophobia. There has been hundreds of cases, over 1,000 cases of racist remarks and racist actions. And these are just people, I mean, we're all people, and we should be dedicating ourselves to keeping everybody safe, fighting the virus rather than turning on each other. And it's not a time to waste energy on that type of behavior. And so appreciate the city taking the time to do that. And also anybody who really want to contribute to to fighting virus, the county is taking money at the smcstrong.org, and they're also accepting donations at their collection center. You can go to just smcstrong.org to get more information. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Councilman Lee. And those comments also ties in well with the Celebrate Diversity Month, which we're celebrating here in April. You know, it's disturbing to hear about a number of incidents of xenophobia and racism. I went jogging at Taylor Middle School not too long ago, about a little over a week ago, and there was quite a bit of racist graffiti spray painted on the campus, as well as a swastika and a lot of vulgar and obscene graffiti there. So thank you to the school district for, and also to our parks crew for cleaning up the graffiti on the snack bar at Taylor Field and the other graffiti around the Taylor campus. So hopefully we can continue to monitor and patrol that area and to keep it safe. Okay, let's move on to the agenda overview and staff briefing. So could we have that, Mr. Williams?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to you, and good evening to the city council members and everyone in attendance this evening. Tom Williams, city manager. Just to go over the remaining agenda items. After the staff briefing, we have approval of the meeting minutes for the regularly scheduled meeting of March 10th and March 19th. Then we have on the agenda oral reports from city committees and commission chairs, which we have no items on that particular agenda. Then we move to public communication, and that is allotted 3 minutes for any member from the public to address the city council on any item not on the agenda. Then we move to the consent calendar. We have 7 items this evening. Item number 5 is a resolution awarding a contract to the Pipe and Plant Solutions for the 2020 sanitary sewer mains cleaning and inspection project. Item number 6 is a resolution approving the expansion and addition of residential preferential permit parking zones. Item number 7 is to accept the City of Millbrae electric vehicle feasibility report in response to the San Mateo County Grand Jury report entitled Electric Vehicle Adoption in Cities and County of San Mateo. Item number 8 is to consider approval of the library parking lot closure, facility rental fee waiver, and staff costs for the Japanese Cultural Festival scheduled for October 4th of this year. Item number 9 is to consider approval of a facility rental fee waiver for the annual Millbrae Historic Society 4th of July event. Item number 10 is to consider a resolution for the adoption of a list of projects for fiscal year 2020-2021 funded by Senate Bill 1, that's the gas tax funding for Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. Item number 11 is to consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to seek assistance from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. There are no public hearings on the agenda this evening. Moving to existing business, we have 2 items. Item number 12 is to consider approval of an ordinance regarding the safe storage of firearms in residences. Item number 13 is to consider establishing a parking authority within the Millbrae Station Area Specific Plan boundary. Moving on to new business, 1 item, item 14, is to consider approval of an urgency ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on eviction for non-payment of rent by small commercial business tenants directly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Then we move on to council comments. Mr. Mayor, I would like to mention on the consent calendar, we have received requests from various council members to remove items 6, 7, and 10 from the consent calendar. So moving on to the manager's report, I'd like to bring up my screen. So I have quite a bit of information I'd like to share this evening. One is just an update overall of the COVID-19 current shelter in place. I believe, as everyone knows, and on benefit for the public, the order is now in effect and will last through May 3rd, 2020. This may be extended, but we will wait and see. But right now it's shelter in place through May 3rd, 2020. Remind everybody of social distancing requirements. Social distancing is to make sure that you stay at your residence except for essential services that you may need, medical, food supplies. And if you are out, please maintain a minimum of 6 feet between you and anyone else. There are reports just today from the county health officer that San Mateo County has done a fantastic job. And I'll show you in just a second the county statistics and data on where we are in controlling the virus. I would like to mention that city essential services continue. We have online plan submittals and permit submittals for necessary permits such as water heaters, plumbing, electrical, and the residential units that are in the pipeline and under construction. We're moving forward with all essential functions which are operating normally and no issues. And then any member of the public can refer to the City of Millbrae website for all COVID-19 information, and also the San Mateo County website, which is San Mateo County COVID-19, and also the 211 number for information is still up and running, and that is an information source for members of the public. I'd like to just quickly turn now to the county dashboard and share with members of the public that may be listening that in total, there are now 6,773 total people in the county that have been tested. 699 as of today have tested positive. 6,043 have tested negative. We have 31 pending results, and it's taking about 2 days to get those results back. In terms of San Mateo County hospital data, currently on the left side of the screen, there's 87 people that are hospitalized with the coronavirus. All in all, we have 87 ICU beds, 413 surge beds, 219 ventilators. Of those ICU beds, 48 out of the 85 are in use. Of the 413 surge beds, 102 are in use. And of the 219 ventilators, 56 are currently in use. I would like to report that of the 721 cases, and according to the county data, we have 21 deaths, but the county overall has done a fantastic job in achieving the objective of flattening the curve by social distancing and sheltering in place. And reports are that if we continue, we'll continue to flatten out the curve and ride this thing out. This information, again, is available on the county's COVID-19 website. Their dashboard, so any member of the public can log on and review this information. So I would like to thank a lot of people, a lot of organizations, first and foremost, the city staff, especially our public works staff, for being on call and continuing to keep the city operational. I'd like to mention Jack Diaz and his wife, who have sewn over about 50 masks voluntarily for city employees. So a shout out to Jack Diaz and his wife for preparing and making those masks for city employees. And then Bill Riley, who's our Emergency Operations Center manager, for the great job that he's done behind the scenes during this pandemic. Also, Millbrae Lions Club and Leo's Club, Millbrae Cultural Committee for donating over 1,000 masks. I think it was actually close to 3,000 masks to local hospitals and to our city staff that's out in the field, our sheriff's office, and our Central County Fire Department, as well as other essential service workers. Millbrae Community Foundation for donating $10,000 to San Mateo Strong. Millbrae Rotary Club for volunteering their time to contact and have phone calls to seniors that are in need of communication and just reaching out to them as part of the CARE program that the city has put in place. Self-help for the elderly, their lunch program. I believe there's about 15 people that have signed up for lunch delivery on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Millbrae CERT that's volunteered their time at the Countywide Volunteer Center for this emergency. SAMCETA, especially Roseanne Faust and Don Cecil. For people that don't know, they've just done a fantastic job in getting information out to residents and to local businesses. So just wanted to recognize SAMCETA and their efforts. Also, Mike Callaghy, Chief Executive Officer at San Mateo County. City managers and council members have briefings Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And Mike and his team through this emergency have just done an outstanding job. Can't say enough about the good work. And then Mayor, I just wanted to mention, you've done 3 videos and 4 letters over the last month that we've sheltered in place. Thank you for your time in making sure that we get the word out locally. All this information is on our website. Moving on, somebody had mentioned San Mateo Strong. Anybody can log into smcstrong.org. There you can find information for individuals and families to help cover basic household expenses. Small local businesses, there are programs to help them avoid layoffs and stay open and reopen once feasible. There's $3 million that the County Board of Supervisors has allocated to small businesses. The Small Business Grant Program on the bottom of the screen is online. It should be online as of tomorrow. Those grants are for businesses with $2.5 million in annual net income. The program is through San Mateo County Credit Union, and it provides grants if businesses can prove that they have 25% reduction in business due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and they have a current business license and permits that are in good standing with the municipality. So I encourage our businesses that need help to reach out. Also, they can contact my office in the city for any further assistance. Other local assistance programs that we've been doing, we've conducted outreach to local businesses. We've developed a list of over 30 Millbrae restaurants and essential businesses that are open, working in partnership with San Mateo County. COVID-19 information portal is up and running. You can log on, and this shows businesses in Millbrae and throughout the county that are restaurants that are open for pickup and delivery, as well as grocery stores and pharmacies. Also, our McKinsey Brady and our Recreation Department, the virtual art show is up and running. That's on our website. We've implemented a senior wellness check through our Recreation Department and signups where San Mateo County Sheriff's Office deputies will go out and actually make sure that seniors in our community are being looked after and they have what they need on these wellness checks. There's a lunch program that's provided through our school district, and anyone that needs food delivery services through the county EOC can contact the number on the bottom of the screen at 650-779-9357. This information is also, again, on the city's website and on San Mateo County's website. Then we have federal assistance programs. There's the Coronavirus Aid Relief, which is known as the CARES Act, adopted by the federal government. This provides about $350 billion in lending programs. The most important is the payroll protection program for our local businesses. There are several lending institutions that provide these loans. I understand that they're very backlogged right now, but keep trying. And if anyone needs assistance, please contact the city of Millbrae, and we'll do everything we can to help our local businesses apply for the PPP program. And then lastly, I wanted to remind everybody that Census 2020 is here. Please be counted. Census 2020 San Mateo County. The website is cmo.smcgov.org/census-2020-san-mateo. We are in the process right now of being counted. March 26th through April 3rd, postcards were out. April 1st was Census Day. April 8th through the 16th, hard copy census information is mailed. People can log on to the website and be counted that way, or send this information in. The census will be conducted through August 14th, and people that do not submit their census online or through the mail, people will actually come out to their residence or to their place of residency on their address and actually knock on their door to try to get people counted. I believe the last figures that I saw, San Mateo County is second in the state of California, actually behind Santa Clara County, with about almost 63% of the population being counted. Millbrae is tracking that. Our census data that people have applied for or submitted is right around 63% as well. So let's keep up the great work, and please be counted. It's meaningful for the city in terms of revenue distribution from the state as well as the federal government. So Mr. Mayor, Council, if there aren't any questions, that concludes my report.
Mayor, I have just one addition.
Oh, yes, Vice Mayor, go ahead.
It's my understanding, and city manager, correct me, but this Friday is the last day to submit your art for the city's first virtual art show. So if you're watching at home, or if we can get that in the minutes, how they can submit their art. Where on the city's webpage can they find that?
So Mackenzie Brady, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, so you can go online to find the virtual art show under the recreation area of the website, or you can email your art to ggabriel, GGABRIEL @ci.milbrae.ca.us. And there are specific there's specifications for how to send in the art, but he can respond to you and let you know how to do that if you're on the website.
Excellent. We have some great artists in Millbrae of all ages. Please, please submit your artwork.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. And speaking of the census, I'd heard that it may possibly be delayed until 2021, that there may be some deadline changes. So we will keep you apprised of any delays or any changes in that. Okay, and it was mentioned that there were 3 items that will be moved from consent, so we will address that
Mr.
once we get
Mayor,
to
I have a
that.
comment.
Yes, Councilman Lee.
Yeah, I just want to first of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your leadership in this crisis. You've been informing the public and giving people a sense of security that the city is doing very well. And also like to thank our city manager, Tom Williams, for his leadership. And this is a very difficult time, and it's a very unusual time. So we just really appreciate our staff and our leadership in ensuring that our city gets through this in a very orderly way, in a way that's safe, and also creates a sense of security for everybody, knowing that we're in good hands. And also, I'm very impressed by the programs that Recreation's been putting up, and I'm letting you know, the city is working hard to plan for not only for the crisis but beyond. So I just want to thank staff again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Lee. I believe I've only done 2 videos, but I can take credit for 3 if that's what it says up there. But we're trying to get information out as timely and helpful, useful information to the public as much as possible. Okay,
Mr. Mayor?
I just, as part of my presentation here, if I may, Cheryl Fama, the
oh
executive
yes,
director of the Peninsula Healthcare District. They've been doing great work behind the scenes. Also, I'd like to recognize Cheryl for her presentation to provide the public and the council an update on the great work that the district's been doing. I'll hand it over to Cheryl.
okay.
Cheryl?
I saw her head there earlier.
Can we?
Go ahead.
Is Cheryl here?
Yeah. Cheryl's here. I'm here.
I'm here.
I'm
We're here.
Dr. Lawrence Capel, and I'm the chairman of the district. And in a second, I'll let Cheryl talk about what we have done for this. But I just wanted to mention that this was something, this whole COVID-19 thing was something that the district first became aware of in January and started to track. And we talked about it in our board meetings. We talked about it in a couple of other meetings. By the time the shelter-in-place orders came down, I believe it was March 13th, I think was the official date for that. We had already put in place a number of activities that would take place. And so I just wanted to thank my staff at the district, Cheryl and Ashley and the rest of the staff for being in tune with something that obviously turned out to be a rather serious situation in our country. And so, Cheryl, maybe you can talk a little bit about what we've done in the last 2 months.
Yes, thank you. And I think my assistant, Tom, was going to pop up some slides, but I really want to thank you for the opportunity to take the time to share with you some of the things we've done. Angela, will the slides be coming up? You know, the district is part of kind of a four-legged stool or five-legged stool. You have the health plan of San Mateo, you have the public health of the Department of Health Service, you have the private sector hospitals and what have you, and then you have the two healthcare districts. And I appreciate the opportunity to share with you some of the things we've done. When it first came out, we really had three tranches or three focus areas. First and foremost, and you can go to the next page, slide, please. The first thing we needed to do is to protect the residents that we more directly served. And again, for the audience, the healthcare district, while our office is right on Truesdale and it's very close to Millbrae, we in fact cover 230,000 residents in the county, going from the south end of South City all the way to halfway through Foster City. So we have quite a large area to provide services to. But our first step was to look at our immediate responsibilities, and that was our Truesdale Assisted Living and Memory Care Facility at the corner of Magnolia and Truesdale. We actually stopped all congregate dining and congregate activities the first week of March because we knew that that's a high-risk gathering of seniors. And as unfortunately the pandemic has panned out, you can tell by the statistics that there is a vulnerable population all kept kind of in one location. So we stopped all congregate activities the first week of March. We started putting people through assessments when they walked into the visitors, when they came in to visit, asked a little brief history, took temperatures. Before that was kind of the common thing to do. We also implemented health monitoring of all the staff in that first week of March. And in fact, you know, in that business, there are so many staff that work part-time at a number of the wonderful organizations, assisted living and memory care in the county. And we gave our per diem or part-time employees notice that should they be working in a facility that comes down with a positive case, they would be quarantined from use at the Truesdale for at least 2 weeks. The other thing is that when any resident comes in, I put pad because I'm not technologically conversant in language, but each person gets a pad or a booklet, not quite an iPad, to communicate with their family. So they already had that, but we went through and had on our plan. But when this happened, we went through and gave every resident an Alexa. And that has done a wonderful keeping them connected with the weather, the news, music. And it's been a real nice addition to kind of help ward off the isolation that they feel staying in their apartments. All meals are served to them in their apartments, etc. The next difficult step for us to do was to close our Sonrisas dental clinics, both at San Mateo and Half Moon Bay. Sonrisas, you may know, is a nonprofit dental center that the district helped establish. And we actually treat of our patients about 69% of our visits, which are about 630 visits a month, are uninsured, sliding scale cash and dental cal. We're one of the only clinics that takes all of those payer sources. And we had to close our doors to that. We had to lay off staff. And I would want you to know one of the things the district did to help is we paid the staff through the 10th of April when we thought the first would be over. And when we did have to lay off the caregivers, we also helped fund and cover their benefits because that's such a vital clinic. We wanted them to be able to come back and we wanted to be able to really pick up and serve our residents. And then the last, just up the corner from the Truesdale, we have the Peninsula Healthcare District Health and Fitness Center on the corner of Marco Polo Way and Truesdale. And we needed to close that on March 13th. And that impacted 230 seniors who regularly use the center. But when we closed it, we gave them home exercises and we also instituted a buddy call system to stay in touch. Next slide, please. Once we had our immediate charges taken care of, we really then focused more on the partnerships we have. Each year we give out on average about 55 community grants to nonprofit and human services providers, in addition to our major programs, the membership gym and the dental service. And we looked to see what might be missing out there. And one of the things we launched on March 18th was an expanded older adult support service call line. And I think City Manager Williams for giving all those different resources, but you can't have enough places for people to call to get help. 211 we've coordinated this expansion with 211, with the Institute on Aging, with the Aging and Adult Services of the county. And what it provides is any kind of help you want. If a senior just wants to chat with somebody, if a senior needs, where do I go to get food? It's another opportunity to get services, transportation, whatever. And there are multiple languages available. So we've been promoting that through the Daily Journal, and on our website is the call number. The other thing we did is, of our grantees, our grant cycle's January to December. And so it's very early in their grant life. And we gave them all flexibility to use those district funds whatever way they need for COVID related needs, which was a great relief for many of them. And we also said, if you don't spend it all in this term, by December, the money doesn't go away. They need to apply for it, but we will extend the grant term. And then the other thing we've launched is a whole series of short, brief health tip videos. We just launched one on Facebook on healthy eating. We have virtual classes on mindfulness, stress reduction, how to eat mindfully. We are doing at the Dental Center a series of kid-oriented kind of oral health tips that'll be, I think, coming out this week. And also want you to know, one of the things we had to do related to the Dental Center is we had to cancel all of our school screenings. We had 8 school screenings scheduled this spring, hoping to get to over 800 children. And of course, we had to cancel those. But with the ingenuity of our Dr. Bonnie Jew, she said, well, if we can't look in their mouths and be there, we made sure that we delivered the little dental goodie bags with the toothbrush and the floss and the little flyer and some kid-related information on how to keep healthy. So those are some of the things that we did with our grant recipients. And then next slide, please. And then, of course, the countywide support. And on that front, the district has been a real player. When the Chief of Health, Louise Rogers, called us on March 16th to say about the surge, that we were going into shelter in place and that we really need to have a facility where we could handle the surge and help to relieve the hospital acute beds status by having a hotel that they were going to lease to use for that purpose. And as you probably all know, they did lease the Holiday Inn Express behind Max's. They're on Bayshore Boulevard, 145 unit alternative housing facility. And what I'm proud of is that we were asked on the 16th, we had an emergency board meeting, and our board unanimously stepped up to say, we need this, we need to keep the beds open in the hospitals, and we will put $3 million, commit that to help establish that and to take care of our residents and to protect the availability of our hospital beds. So that was our first bold move. The other thing we've done is we donated 10 hospital beds and 10 overbed tables. And you might be thinking, well, where the heck does a district have 10 hospital beds stored? That's not something you have in the closet that you pull out on a pandemic day. Well, actually, we bought the former Mission Hospice residential facility in San Mateo, and we're planning to open that as independent apartments for independent but special needs adults as soon as all of this passes. And when we took over the facility, we still had hospital beds and tables in there that we don't need and Mission Hospice didn't need. So we were fortunate to have something that was put immediately to good use in the hotel. We also have that empty lot behind Mills Peninsula parking, and we've made that available to the hospital for overflow parking, tents if they need additional tents. So when we look at New York and other places, if you have an open space, it may be called into use, but fortunately we are not at that situation. And then we've also, and I want to give a shout out to the Millbrae Culture Committee, because they have been very active in connecting with me to help make sure we can get supplies to Mills Peninsula Hospital. And they have brought supplies to my office. They've also helped connect me with opportunities to get PPE. And the district's invested close to $20,000 now in masks, hand gel, what I call those white Ghostbuster suits, that they wear, so that we can provide some to the hospital. But most importantly, right now, we're building up supplies that we can give to our caregivers that are in the nonprofit community. Next slide, please. I mentioned about the PPE. We've also happy to say we supported the Baywatch restaurant, and we're looking at ways to engage restaurants that are trying to stay open or trying to use their personnel by also getting food to one of the greatest needs that the county is facing right now, and that's food insecurity. So we gave a donation to the Baywatch, and what they did is they gave 50 meals to the EMTs that are based in Burlingame. And the other thing we really see our role as being is help nonprofits that spend every penny they have on services. How can we help them get their services out there and more widely known? So we're working with One Life Counseling that has a hotline for parents to help promote that for them. We're working with the YMCA San Francisco office, who is interested in setting up childcare in the San Mateo YMCA. And we're working with Thrive and others to identify if there's a demand, working with Samaritan House to help get the word out on their food distribution and those kind of activities. We really see our role as being a partner to that fabric and that safety net in the county. So next slide, please. Of course, I think that I get the privilege of being kind of a spokesperson for the district, but I really always feel that my board needs some recognition for their unanimous support of, just jumping in and helping out, and for really staying focused on what we're all about. Identifying the priorities, addressing gaps in service, valuing the partners that are there, and see how we can help them be more impactful. And always what we do is with collaboration, and then we invest our funds accordingly. And I'd want you to know that for this current fiscal year, we had already budgeted $3 million to invest in community benefit between grants and the dental center and other subsidies of services. But in addition to that, we've already committed to the COVID event, 3.1 million. And to put that in perspective, we get $7 million a year in taxes, and we've invested it, we think, wisely this year in meeting those needs. And then final slide, please. I wanted you to open up to questions, but it's not a very good picture, but we really do want to thank all the essential workers, the city workers, the doctors and nurses are, I'm a little partial, being a nurse myself, are critical, but nobody can do it without the whole team. So we really thank them. And with that, I will stop and see if you have any questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Nema. That was a wonderful presentation, and thank you for your very, prompt and aggressive response on the COVID-19, and your very generous contribution of $3 million to the San Mateo County Strong Fund. You've always been a great community partner of many programs we've done here in Millbrae, and we look forward to continue to work to get through this crisis and to continue to be great partners together. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank
Okay.
you for the opportunity.
Any questions? Yes,
Yes.
Councilwoman Pappen?
Yeah, sorry, I raised my hand. I don't know what's going on with the hand raising.
I'm sorry.
thing.
I apologize. Yep. Please continue to use that.
I'm trying. I really want to thank the healthcare district, Dr. Chappelle. You guys are doing an amazing job. The Alexa app for people that are closed in, I think is a wonderful idea. So many wonderful ideas, and really getting the money and the resources to those who need them in this time of need is so absolutely wonderful. So thank you all for your efforts. in helping people through this crisis and pandemic. It's greatly appreciated. I know you don't always hear that, but seeing the community come together in this way, I really appreciate the presentation tonight too. We didn't have an idea of much. I've heard about some of what you're doing, but all the amazing things you guys are doing. Thank you so very much. Greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Gina.
Okay, Councilwoman Oliva?
Cheryl, it's Annie, and excuse the dogs in the background. That's why I've been muted most of this time. But it's just like you take your doctors or your nurses or your health district for granted many times in your life because they're doing their job and you're not on a daily basis engaged with it. But I have to say that, man, we needed you guys bad, and you stepped up so quickly, so forcefully, and so perfectly. And I'm forever grateful for all the work that you've been doing and support you 100%. And I just want to say thank you to you and your whole team very, very much, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Schneider?
And like the others, thank you for everything. I am serving on the county's long-term planning for COVID, the 30, 60, 90-day plan. And on a series of phone calls today, a couple of questions came up about how we can better care for medical first responders. But that includes both our first responders, police, fire, doctors, nurses, all the way down to your cleaning crew. So 2 ideas coming up. One, would it assist your people who are working so very hard if they had priority ability to get groceries and other supplies, and or lacking that, would it make sense to send up mini supermarkets inside hospitals where they could get those critical food needs so they can get home and get to rest?
I can respond to, I can't speak for the hospital, except that I would tell you probably something in the hospital wouldn't be well received. A mini, because they just don't want people in and out of the hospital unless they have to be in there. I know one of the things that we're doing at the Truesdale is that we have one of our produce vendors who are making available boxes of fruits and vegetables to all the staff. So the staff can order, I think it's $32 a box, and it's like 25 pounds of, and then when they come and deliver the supply to the Truesdale, they also deliver these boxes for employees. And so if I may, I think that probably would be something that might be appealing to the hospital workers as well.
Great idea. I'll add that. Thank you.
Okay.
And thanks to all your folks.
Yeah, thank you.
And Councilman Lee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to conserve bandwidth, so I'm video feed. Thank you, Cheryl, and thank you to the Health District. Thank you to the board directors. This is, we're relying on you for your leadership in this respect. We're relying on your expertise. Of course, I'm very grateful to the community stepping up. My question, and I'm very impressed by the amount of work that you've been able to do in a short amount of time. So I'm just asking you, what else can we do to help out the health system? Are the senior assisted living facilities, are they getting supplies? Is the hospital getting enough supplies? Are other hospitals getting enough supplies? And where can people donate? And what type of things do they need to that the hospital needs?
The 2 biggest needs in the county that you probably hear if you're on the county manager meetings is the food and food distribution. I think that's caught everybody off guard, but it shouldn't when we realize how many people have lost their work. But and I know that county manager Mike Halliday has formed kind of a food czar, he said, and a real program to look at how we can make it more efficient and how we can get food out easier. We see the national news with the cars lined up all over. Well, we see that in our own area now, the cars lined up to get food. So food is the number one issue. And then also staying connected with this new task force, because we're looking at what creative, innovative ways to get the food out. As Councilwoman Schneider brought up, how can we help bring it to them? And to your point, Councilwoman Schneider, one of the concerns has been when you get off duty, I mean, our staff, they get off, they work 12-hour, 18-hour shifts. Well, they can't just walk in with their uniform on, you know, you just can't, you have to go home and change. So it's been a problem getting food to the workers. So that's the number, things that can get groceries to the workers is important, and food primarily, anything that can help get food and product out to the public. The second greatest need, and it's tied, is the PPE. The county just isn't getting it, and it's we're competing. You know, you hear it on the news, so I don't want to be guilty of fake news, but the reality is we hear that millions are being sent, but I know sister-in-law who works at CPMC in the city. I have a daughter that works in Santa Clara. We have people that work at Mills Peninsula. Grassroots people are saying they do not have masks. They have to wear them all day. They have to wear them for a week. So that's the biggest crisis right now. Anything and any contact we have that can help bring in supplies, especially smaller quantities for the safety net folks, the people that are in the mental health field, the people that are out doing the counseling, the people that are serving folks in the smaller clinics like Samaritan House. They need it too. They need gloves and not the high tech gear. So that's a really huge need. I would say those are the two biggest ones. Councilman Lee, and certainly you folks have done a lot to get supplies. And I know other groups in Millbrae have brought meals into the hospital staff. I think they're doing pretty good, but getting food out to our community is the big challenge. So donations, volunteers, there's a growing number of organizations that are putting together food delivery, but I think the county's trying to get it even more organized so we can be more efficient, increase the donations, the purchasing and the distribution.
Okay, well, thank you, Cheryl, and thank you, Dr. Capel, for joining us this evening.
Question?
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, question.
Okay, yes.
All right.
Councilman Pappen?
Maggie? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I get clarification, please, Cheryl, Dr. Capel? So is it possible to donate gloves from an open box, or are they only sealed gloves that they're, you know, some people get those big Costco boxes and they've already been opened from like months ago or years ago, whatever. So are they still accepting those at like Samaritan House or places like that?
Do you want to comment, Larry, or?
Well, I think the preference would be an unopened box. You know, there's lots of issues that could develop with an open box. And so, you know, if it was a last ditch effort, I think people might take the open box, but I think that would be a last ditch effort. I think both boxes would be a choice. Yeah.
Okay. And then two quick final questions here. So correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mayor. So the Taylor School is still doing the school lunches. So that's one aspect of feeding some of our school children. And then secondarily,
I'm not sure if it's at Taylor, but I know Mills High School has a location, and there's at least one in the elementary school district, but I'm not sure which location it is. I think it's Lomita.
Okay, yeah.
Correct, yeah.
The Taylor message board had up school lunches. So I was making that assumption, but I'm sure we can get clarification on our website. That would be great. A secondary note, we did have calls from certain certain residents who don't have computers or don't have smartphones. And the county I know is working with the Grocery Association to try to get them to accept phone orders. I know Supervisor Slocum was leading that way. So I think we definitely need to follow up on that front, because we do have residents who are calling out of state to their relatives to do the food orders for them. We want to try to fix that little glitch, and hopefully we can work together to resolve that matter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Papp. And then also potentially could be a good fit for CERT in terms of utilizing CERT to match up seniors that are not the most computers tech savvy with others that can make orders for them. Okay, and I saw Vice Mayor Schneider, you had your hand up, and then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
You're muted.
I have unmuted me. The questions that you're bringing up are things that are being discussed long-term, but that's still going to be at least a week before recommendations roll out. But just your reference to CERT today on our call, for example, 24 CERT members have applied to the county EOC and they haven't been activated yet. And today it was mentioned that one of the things CERT members might be used for will be in contact tracing. But they are, as Cheryl said, a lot of additional volunteers figuring out who or what. They think that we're going to run short of volunteers for food delivery, whether it's through Meals on Wheels or Second Harvest could use assistance. So I think that's going to step up on there. And then it will be, how can we get people through I hate to sound so controlling, but a single line of communication. So we know that certain people have had certain training that is comparable to doing contract tracing. Other people might have better tech skills on that. So, but I thank you for the additional ideas. I will email them to the county consultants that have been brought in.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, Ms. Fema, and also Dr. Capel for joining us. And
Thank you.
we will remain in touch with you, and thank you very much for your leadership on this, and look forward to continue working with you as a strong community partner.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's move on to the approval of the minutes. We have the meeting of March 10th, 2020, as well as the special meeting of March 19th, 2020. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion from
Move
Councilwoman
approval.
Pappen. I'll take that as a second.
Wayne Lee.
Okay. I had Gina in there first. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay,
Annie.
we have a motion from Councilwoman Pappen and a second from Councilwoman Oliva. Can we do a roll call vote, please? The clerk, please.
Can I have your votes, please? Councilmember Lee?
Yes.
Councilmember Lee? Councilmember Pappen?
Yes.
Councilmember Oliva?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Snyder?
Yes,
Mayor Holliber?
Aye.
The minutes passed unanimously.
Okay, we have no oral reports this evening, so we'll move on to public communication. And we used an email function that we've been using to receive public comment. I will ask the city clerk to read any general public comments for items not on the agenda that we have received before 7 p.m. this evening.
Mayor Holliber, before I proceed with reading the comments, I have a question. We had a deadline of 7 p.m. for the comments to be submitted. We received one comment at 7:05. Is it the council's desire to accept it?
I would say yes.
Okay. So we have received 4 comments. The first comment is from Yo-Yo Zoo. Council members, businesses are suffering like never before and need urgent protections against unscrupulous landlords in this perilous time. Small businesses are built by hardworking Americans through numerous sacrifices over the course of many years. An eviction proceeding threatens to destroy everything that a business owner has worked for and is often—
Sorry, city clerk?
Yes?
I'm sorry. This sounds like it was written in response to item number 14, the eviction moratorium item.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
So let's go back to it at that time.
Okay.
Okay.
The next comment is from Lou Sandrini. Mayor and City Council, I respectfully submit the following as a revised public communication for the April 14th, 2020 council meeting pursuant to the city's direction. I had to revise it because subsequent to my submission, I received an email from the mayor. Had it been normal times, I would be at the meeting and the revision is what I would have said. I know and I am sure you can make this revision. If not, please let me know before the meeting tonight. Thank you. Mayor Holliber, I wrote to you 2 weeks ago concerning my communications with City Manager Tom Williams relative to unwarranted stop signs and to advise you of a serious problem with Mr. Williams' performance. His conduct and management of the matter have been deceitful, unprofessional, displayed questionable management skills, and reflected a lack of respect for the public trust. This situation demands your attention and action. As noted 2 weeks ago, I asked to meet with you or otherwise have a dialogue to discuss this serious matter. I have written to you to follow up, but you have ignored my requests. I request again that you respond to my request. Postscript. I originally submitted this communication to the city at 2:51 today. At 4:26 today, you, the mayor, sent me an email to say you apologize for not getting back sooner. How interesting is this timing? Sorry, not good. And please note, the most serious problem is Mr. Williams' bad performance, not the stop signs. Hope to be hearing from the mayor soon. Submitted, Lou Sandrini. The next comment is from Marge Colapietro. Honorable Mayor and Council members, I believe that the Council Interview Subcommittee will soon be reviewing applications for the various commissions and committees for the 2020 to 2021 fiscal year. I am requesting that you please review the Youth Advisory Committee and consider amending the committee membership actions as follows. Number 1, reduce the 4-year term to a 2-year term. This will provide a better incentive for more students to apply and know they may have an opportunity to be selected. Number 2, the chairperson and vice chairperson shall serve no more than 1-year term. This will provide an opportunity for more members to experience a leadership role. Number 3, specify that no more than 1 family member serve on the committee during a 2-year term. This will avoid any perceived favoritism for a particular family. As things stand now, a junior high school student can serve 6 years in the committee and a high school student can serve 4 years if they were to be reappointed each year. That had happened in years past. I noticed that all of the terms of currently seated members of the committee will expire at the end of May 31st, 2020. This is a good time to make some changes. I recently talked with some parents and kids who expressed frustration that their kids don't have an opportunity to take part in YAC because there isn't room for them. It is my belief that particularly on this committee, more youth should have an opportunity to experience volunteer civics in action. During interviews, it must be stressed that the applicant, if appointed, must have a good attendance record. Thank you for your consideration. Marge Colapietro, Mayor Emeritus, City of Millbrae, Community Advocate, and volunteer. The next comment is from Nathan Chan.
Elena, that one might be related to the MSASP parking area.
Nathan submitted 2 comments,
Okay.
Vice Mayor. One is related to that, and one is for public communication. Thank you, Millbrae City Council, for the opportunity to give public comment online. Something I know this city and the council cares deeply about is enhancing the public's access to council meetings. For example, I've heard you and other officials emphasize the need for high-quality video presentations and real-time language translation. In that spirit, I am hopeful that the city will retain the practice of soliciting public comment via email after we get through this pandemic. Attending council meetings in person is difficult for many people, like seniors, parents of young children, shift workers, and those with limited mobility. For those able to attend, we often have to sit through an hour or more of content before being able to speak on the item of interest. The news website City Lab reported on a Boston University study that reporting participants in these meetings were older and more likely to be white, male, and own a house. Women, for example, made up just 43% of commenters at community meetings, even though they represented 51% of registered voters. I am hopeful the council resolves to continue making public comment more accessible going forward. And that is the end of the public comments.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's move on to the consent calendar. It sounds like we will be removing items 6, 7, and 10 from the consent calendar, if that's correct. So that leaves us with items 5, 8, 9, and 11. Anybody want to pull
Motion to
those?
approve.
Okay.
No,
We have a
to
motion
approve
for-
the-
All right, I heard it from Vice Mayor Schneider first. You got to be faster, Wayne. Motion from Vice Mayor Schneider. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second from Councilman Lee. Your votes, please.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen,
Aye.
Councilmember Oliva, Councilmember Oliva,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Schneider,
Aye.
Mayor Holliber.
Aye.
Items number 5, 8, 9, and 11 on the consent calendar passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to item number 6, the resolution approving the expansion and addition of residential preferential permit parking zones. We have a comment on this one.
Pete Lim and Jane Cow, Mr. Mayor, will be providing the presentation.
Good evening, all. So Jane with the Public Works Department. For this item, we recommend adopting a resolution to approve the expansion and addition of residential preferential permit parking zone to include Elder and Palm Avenue. So a quick background. In 2005, the city adopted an ordinance to establish this permit parking program to alleviate parking difficulties in downtown residents and business zones. The requirement of this program are detailed in Chapter 4.80 of the Millbrae Municipal Code. This is a two-step process. So subsection 50 provides the City Council the authority to approve, alter, or dissolve the parking zone boundaries. The second step, which is detailed in subsection 60, details the application process. So tonight, we would like to complete step 1 of the process to expand existing boundaries 2 blocks west to include Elder and Palm. Then the resident, if they choose to, can complete step 2 to petition for parking permit on their block. So step 2 of this process is detailed on the slide. There are 6 requirements. I would like to highlight items D and F. All the other ones are more administrative. So item number D, item D, basically states that the petition must must include signature from 75% of the household within the potential parking permit area approving this parking permit on their street. And item F requires that 80% of the block front must be residentially zoned, and at a minimum 75% of the spaces must be occupied during any 2 one-hour periods between 10 and 4 p.m. This map is showing the existing boundary of the program. Going from north to south, we have Meadow Glen, and it jogs in Magnolia and go up Richmond. And on the south side, it's Millbrae Avenue. From west to east, it's currently at Poplar and goes down to El Camino. Our proposed new boundary extends west for 2 blocks on Palm Avenue and Elder Avenue. So tonight, we recommend that the City Council approve the expansion of the existing geographical boundary of the program to include Elder and Palm Avenue as shown in the previous slide, and therefore providing residents the opportunity to petition for preferential parking permit if they meet all the requirements as listed in MMC 4.80. That concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cow. And so just to clarify, this does not, this action would not mandate parking permits in the area or parking enforcement in the area. It would simply open the process for residents to fill out petitions. And at that point, 75% would have to fill out the petition in support of the permit parking program. It would also require a parking study to show that about 80% of the spaces are full during certain time windows. One question I had is, who qualifies as a household? Is that a property owner? Is that a resident? Who is that?
So, Mr. Mayor, and Mike Connor and our city attorney might want to weigh in here because we had this discussion. So it's not well defined in our municipal code, but the way it's interpreted is a household is a residential unit. So if there's multiple families, say, living in one residential unit, it's not each designated family. It is that actual residential unit. So if it's
okay.
Yeah, and that's a reasonable interpretation. We'd hate for, you know, should there be a contested situation, we'd hate for families to split just so they could gain more votes in this kind of a proceeding. But
right.
I think it's reasonable to say a separate residential housing unit.
Okay, and even if there are multiple units within one parcel, they would be. It's not like a parcel tax or like the fire assessment that we had.
Oh, right.
Each unit would have its own vote.
Right, each unit would have its own vote. Yeah. So
okay.
I don't think it's gotten quite to that Prop 218 level of preciseness. Yeah, but I think that's a fair way to run it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Conner. It looks like we have a few hands up. Let's start with Councilman Lee.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So this is just to reiterate, it has to be voted by 75% of the people within that area. I'm also kind of concerned about the lack of parking that will be taken away for people who want to enjoy the park, Central Park. If I may recommend that the boundary ends at Lansdale onto Richmond to provide additional parking for those people who want to enjoy a picnic, and I'm pretty sure a picnic is going to last more than a couple hours.
So if I may, Mayor, I can address that question. This is Key Lam.
Yes.
The parking permit, once implemented on certain block, what it does is that it allows the resident with the parking permit to park there beyond the posted hours. Most of the time, those time limits are going to be 2 hours. So I think that would probably be sufficient time for people to take a long stroll at Central Park and whatnot. So if you have a parking permit, you can park there for more than 2 hours without getting a citation. For those that do not have a parking permit, would have to go by the time limit on those streets. And once the permit boundary is expanded, not all blocks will be signed residential parking permit zone. Only those, like what Jane has just explained, 75% of the residents on that block would sign the petition, send it to the city, and we would verify, and we would conduct a few investigations to make sure that there is a true problem during that certain time frame. And then once that is established, we will establish the permit zone. And just to, for some background, the parking program has been in place since for about 15 years now, since 2005. And we have actually expanded the permit boundary twice already. The first time we expanded was up there by Magnolia and Palmetto by Cappuccino Triangle Business District. And then more recently, we have expanded the permit parking zone along Hemlock due to the Tai Wu opening back in, I believe, around maybe 2013 or 2014. And that was the last time we expanded the boundary. So that is sort of the background and histories on the permit parking boundary and expansion.
Okay, so that helps to clarify it as well, that the petition process is done on a block by block basis and not the whole area all yes or no. It's based on where the petitions come in from.
I like to, but I still like to have consideration to try to keep have some parking available for people who want to use the park.
Okay, let's get back to that. Let's go through all the comments, but we'll take that under consideration. Vice Mayor Schneider.
Okay, first for the record, I live 5 houses from Central Park on Palm Avenue and have gotten both the city attorney and FPPC's rulings that I can speak on this. But I do like that in the record in case this ever comes back to haunt the city. Number one, those of us who live on the 400 block of Palm, which ends right at Central Park, we're used to people using the parks and adjusting our lives around busy days. So busy days can include movie at the park. It can include weekend park use. It includes the Art and Wine Festival. And I don't want to see people who come to Millbrae for the Art and Wine Festival or any festival who park on our streets and are there for more than 2 hours to get a ticket. So thinking of what Councilman Lee has said, do you think we simply don't enforce strictly on those big city event days? Even the Japanese Cultural Festival will get parkers that day. And we want, speaking for my household, we want people to enjoy it and not feel like they've got to run around and find a new parking place. That's my first question. I actually have quite a few. Now that we're adding ADUs to the neighborhood, and this goes back to what the mayor had asked, an ADU is a separate unit. Do they have to get the vote of an ADU for this? The other part that I see with ADUs, I think Palm Avenue is within, is it a quarter mile or a half mile of a transit corridor, in which case an ADU already doesn't have to have parking. So if we then give an ADU a parking place and a guest parking place, we're actually adding significant parking to the value of that ADU. So and I looked through the language and I didn't see any reference to ADUs in there or the new laws that went into effect last summer on ADUs. So if you can tell me, and don't worry about it, maybe, but I'm uncomfortable voting the ordinance right now without explicit understanding of where ADUs fit. Now, back again to the mayor's question on voting. I know at least one, actually I know 3 houses on the 400 block of Palm Avenue that are renters, love them dearly, but their owners live far away or live in Burlingame. Who votes, the renter or the owner? Just need that clarified. I wonder too, if a resident in any of these parking permit areas can have a special permit day. My neighbor 2 houses down had a small wedding for her brother in their backyard. She came and knocked on our entire block and told us it was coming. Would it be okay if people parked? And we of course said, of course, it is okay to park there all day. for something like that. The same thing might be if you've got a construction project going on and you've got construction workers who are going to be working at your house all day. Maybe they leave for lunch so they could restart the 2-hour parking, but maybe they don't. So I don't understand how all that will work. And when I looked at the map, I didn't know if the block of Richmond Avenue from Palm Avenue to Magnolia was also within the 2-hour parking. There is always a food truck between Poplar and Magnolia. Power to them. I would hate to think that they can now only be there for 2 hours a day, but maybe that particular block, because it's really one apartment building and a parking lot, isn't in the parking district. I couldn't tell. I'm just checking the rest of my questions. It is my understanding, and the mayor might live in this complex, I might be confused where he lives, that very large apartment complex started unbundling parking from their monthly rental fee. And that way, some people have started parking on Lansdale. We never used to have that many cars on Lansdale, but over the last 1.5 years or 2 years, there's more cars. So what will this parking permit do to a commercial property owner that has unbundled parking from their own lease agreements? And
I can speak to that briefly if you'd like.
oh, and then I would only add, there's an alley that cuts through all of these streets. Will we be diverting parking to the alley, which is fairly narrow? Then I think I'm done. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, as for the parking issue, unless they've changed it, the way that it works is that every unit does have one parking space. There used to be guest parking spaces available. Those are now rented out individually. So there's almost no guest parking left. So people used to park, their second vehicle in one of the guest parking spaces. Those are now all parking on the streets. But it's not a large number of units that were changed over. Sorry, Mr. Lim.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'm trying to. I wrote down some of your questions, Vice Mayor, so I will attempt to address them one at a time. So talking about not enforcing on certain holiday, that is absolutely, because we have been working with the sheriff departments on parking enforcement, and that goes with either Art and Wine Festival or house party or something. So contact the sheriff office, let them know if any special events is taking place on your block, and sheriff will be more than happy to work with you on the enforcement on those. And then the second. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think that's lovely. Can we get, when this gets enacted, or maybe for the existing permitted area, is that already written on our website? I didn't have a chance today to go look.
If I may, pursuant to our ordinance, we do have provisions in the ordinance that call for special event passes. So we will issue special event passes to cover that rather than just no enforcement.
Excellent.
And then there are 2 guest passes as part of this program that are laminated that can be transferred in and out of vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
And then the next question you have, Vice Mayor, is in terms of ADU. Keep in mind the ordinance was written in 2005 prior to the adoption of the statewide ADU ordinance. And I think that is a very good point that you brought up, that we need to address that. So we will work with the attorney's office on how we address that, because there are certain restriction on how the city can implement parking requirement on ADU, and those are something very new to us, and we need to address that when we update our ordinance next time. And then also on the questions about who signed the petition. So on the petition part, as Jane had mentioned, we need 75% of the residents on that block. So we are going by who the utility register owner is. This is how we verify who are the occupants. So we are go with the occupants of this property. So this is how we could verify that proof of address.
Okay.
And then on the Richmond Magnolia's parking boundary, it would include all of Richmond, and you did mention about a food truck. And by law, food truck is supposed to move every 2 hours because they are being treated by the county health department as a food establishment, and they are not providing bathroom facility. So in theory, they should be moving every 2 hours to actually meet the county ordinance. So I just want to put that out there. And then I think Mayor Holliday already addressed the apartment complex unbundled parking. And the last question you have is whether those parking will be shifted to those alleyway. And I think I know exactly what you meant, those small alleyway where we have PG&E overhead line. And actually, no, parking by city ordinance is not allowed on any of the city alleyway. And that is also correct for those Broadway downtown alleyway parking is strictly prohibited, although we do see someone use it for delivery, and we sort of let them do that to bring garbage truck, to bring food delivery into the businesses downtown. So hopefully that addressed all of your questions on this item tonight.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One more point of clarification, and Key, if we can bring the map back up, that might be helpful.
Sure.
Of Richmond and Magnolia is not actually in the boundary.
Jane, can you bring that map up again, the boundary of the new map?
Looks like it was within the existing boundary.
The existing boundary, Magnolia, is within the 2005 established boundary. So we are added the 2 blocks west of that, where it was delineated with the red dash line.
But as was mentioned, not every block within the boundary has a permit parking in place, right? So
correct. Yeah,
there's no parking limits there on that block.
Yeah, actually, Jane, if you bring up the other exhibit that show you where this is the location where those residents has petitioned to request permit parking. And those red zones are the A zone. And you see those blue zone, those are the for apartment downtown apartment. And then the green zones are strictly for commercial businesses.
Yes, I think this is a good map to show that it's in the zone, but it's not on that block. There is no residential permit parking. That's step 2, right, to create. So
that is correct.
If property owners wanted to create it, they can, but it has not yet been created, even though it's in the zone for eligibility if somebody would want to pursue it.
Correct.
Okay. Councilwoman Oliva?
Sorry, it's hard to unmute when you have all those screens going all over. So I think this is the process is amazing, because if you think about it, we're not making the decision. The process is in place, and the neighbors that live in that neighborhood are getting the opportunity to make the decision. My question would be with the extension of these boundaries, how many households is this affecting, and what does the percentage, how many households have to want this comparably to the total?
That would require by city ordinance 75%. So right. we do the petition.
What is
so like how many?
75% on each block, per block.
Correct.
How many houses are on each block? How many people?
So assuming it's about 10 homes on each side of one block. So 75% would equal to about 15 homes out of the 20 homes on each block that would require to agree to the petition in order to have the permit zone established on their respective block.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Councilwoman Patman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a quick question on the temporary permits. Do they have an expiration? Because, those can get out of control. Like somebody gets 2 and then they just keep cycling through. So is there any limitation on the 2 temporaries you were mentioning?
Yes.
Do they have to be renewed every year?
Yes, those are typically expire on March 31st of every year, but due to the unusual circumstances, we have extended that to April 30th, but we think we're going to extend it again to May 31st for those people that want to continue to have permit that had to be applied every year.
Okay, I wanted to make sure because those can get out of hand very quickly.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the only it sounds like the only question that came up in terms of as a policy decision here is whether to include the block of Palm between Richmond and Lansdale as part of the boundary or not. For the record, I live on that block, so I assume there's no conflict of interest other than my own preference, whether there should be permit parking there or not, but I don't think that's something I would need to recuse myself from.
Correct.
How would the council like to proceed? It sounds like Councilman Lee would like to.
Well, the second issue, Mayor, was ADUs, or do we want it? Can we come back and fix that?
I
at a
think
later
in
date?
terms of the ADUs, it sounds like that's, if there's, I'm not familiar with all the new state laws, but if there is some limitation of parking within proximity to transit, it sounds like that issue would have to do with the entire parking district as opposed to just this expansion, boundary
Correct. So
expansion. So I think that's kind of a separate topic that will need to be ironed out by the city attorney.
We are working on an ADU ordinance, so we could look at that at the same time. But in general, the state law does not allow you to sort of discriminate against the ADUs in terms of parking. So I will take a look at it as we process the ADU ordinance, but I don't think it's going to be something that will be amenable to a specific change to our ordinance. But if we wanted to change it, we would need to come back and amend this permit parking ordinance, which is really not before you tonight. The only item before you tonight is just the boundary change.
And then the other question is, does an ADU count as a household or not? I would think it does.
Well, we can look at that. I think it is, but
so I think that's something to iron out before we send the petitions.
Yeah. So again, if perhaps that's something we could consider at the same time as the ordinance itself, is whether or not we want to clarify. Because the one thing I would just note, and it sounds like staff has worked through this, but the one term in the ordinance that's not crystal clear is the term household. We have a series of defined terms at the beginning of that ordinance, but household is not one of them. Resident is, but that's who gets to get a parking permit, not who gets to vote on the establishment of the district. So we may want to clarify that. And so especially if it's ADU related, we can bring that back to you at the same time if that's the desire of the council.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move approval of item 6 with the exclusion of the Palm Avenue from Lansdale to Richmond.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I had my hand raised for a second, and I just want to make one comment there. ADUs, it goes back to households and ADUs and utility bills. So it's all going to be defined on how they put their ADUs utilities in their name, or if they have separate utilities.
Well,
so, I mean, this is a moot point, and we're talking 20 houses. Yeah. That was my point to the 20 houses. Let the neighbors decide. Let's move this forward and let the neighbors decide. And I second your motion, Wayne.
Yeah, I would just say, if the question is about utility bills, I'm a tenant. I receive an electric bill. I don't receive a water bill or, a water bill or.
Well, then you'd get a vote.
Gas bill. So do I get a vote or not? I don't know.
I just note the utility bill is something that staff has decided to use maybe just to work around the fact that the household definition isn't clear. So if you'd like, we can certainly clarify the definition of household, and then, it could be utility bill, it could be something else. It would be up to you to decide when we brought this for you, if you want to look at making that change. And again, if we're going to be looking at ADUs and they're affecting this, it might make sense to do that all at the same time. It wouldn't be hard at all just to slip in an amendment of this definition in the parking ordinance when we do the amendment to add the ADU regulations.
Mayor, with the amendment, I'm not sure I can support this then. If you remember back when we were all knocking on doors and talking to people, the apartments that go from Palm Avenue West are older style apartments with very limited parking. And I met people, many of whom were young women who worked the swing or night shift and would come home and park on Palm Avenue or Lansdale and then walk over to Lincoln Circle in the middle of the night. I'm trying to figure out how keeping that one block could help that young woman, or how it's making it more difficult for the condominium dwellers that are across the street from you, or the apartment complex on the corner, or if the main problem is the fact that we've got people that come in and park and take Uber to the airport all over this area. By keeping that one block between Lansdale and Richmond, it could drive all of that parking that we don't want. The long-term airport parkers who are trying to avoid or don't want to bring a car before they go to the airport, it's going to drive them to that area, and that area is already impacted. If you go up Richmond and if you read next door, most of the parking complaints come from Richmond.
I have a question of clarification. Isn't most of the isn't the parking permitting, there's a time, right, between usually business hours? So afterwards,
Yeah.
Right.
people can park there, right?
Yeah, people could park there overnight regardless, but the question is, during business hours, I think it's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Well, generally there are cars parked on that block from Lansdale to Palm Avenue day and night. It's more congested than the 400 block of Palm Avenue. So I hear what you're saying, trying to provide parking for park people. I think more of the people who go to the park on the 400 block of Palm, in front of the park on Palm, or on Lansdale. I don't think they park that one section.
Well, we have a motion and we
But then I have to vote
a
no for something I
second,
want to support.
unless there's any, okay.
Mayor Holliber, we have a comment on this item. Would the council like to hear the comment first?
Oh, yes, sorry,
Yes.
I forgot about that. Yes.
Okay, we have a comment from Nathan Chan. Thank you for the opportunity to register this public comment online. I'm glad to see the council take up this expansion of permitted parking in Millbrae. When residents and the council have attributed the lack of parking on our streets to people heading to the airport, I've said expanding the residential parking program seemed like the most obvious solution. However, I would ask the council to keep the needs of our vehicle-dwelling neighbors in mind. These people are probably under an incredible amount of stress, especially during the current pandemic. The last thing we should be doing is displacing them. So we should supplement the current policy with some clarification on how these neighbors will be treated fairly. Thank you, Nathan.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the floor from Councilman Lee. We have a second from Councilwoman Oliva. Let's do a roll call vote, please. City Clerk?
Mayor Holliber, could I get some clarification on the motion on whether that is with the amendment or not?
Correct. It's the motion from Councilman Lee to approve the permit parking with the exception of the block of Palm Avenue between Lansdale and Richmond Drive.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen,
Can we please note that the residents are the ones that are deciding though, given that comment? I don't think that was clear. The residents will be
Correct.
deciding that.
Correct.
Thank you. My vote is aye.
Councilmember Oliva,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Schneider,
Yes, but we've taken away the residents on 500 Palm's ability to vote.
Mayor Holliber.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Let's go on to item number 7. This is the motion to accept the City of Millbrae electric vehicle feasibility report in response to the San Mateo County Grand Jury report, electric vehicle adoption in the cities and counties of San Mateo. Do we have, let's see, we have a comment, it looks like from Councilwoman Pappen, or maybe that was from the previous item.
I no longer have a comment on this one.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Schneider?
Thank you. When I read the report, I don't know who gets credit for the fact that our recycling and garbage fleet are running on biomethane. It's not technically the city, but it is a city contractor. And maybe it's just our website needing to show that our garbage vehicles are running on compost. And also a message to our PCE rep, which I'm only the alternate. In the time that COVID is going to be affecting budgets, I hope that we are asking PCE to help local governments when they have to replace their fleet to replace it with an electric vehicle.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Lee?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So in terms of, I support the report, and I support staff's recommendation. But I was just thinking, just to go one step further, the whole idea is to reduce the city's emission from our auto fleet. I'd like to recommend that staff bring back a report on recommending that we not buy cars that are not meeting California emission standards, and we just buy from those manufacturers who have voluntarily agreed to meet those standards, which are, I believe, Ford, Honda, Volkswagen, and BMW.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, if I may address Councilmember Lee's question.
Yes.
Key Lane Public Works. I like to address that by letting you guys know that we are in the process of evaluating our vehicle fleet citywide, and currently we have, I believe, we have 4 sedan which are hybrid vehicle. At the time of the purchase, the electric vehicle was not, they were not totally available. Oh, that's a cute cat.
Yep.
So
jumped up on my lap.
and also we are extending the service life of our vehicle from current 10 years to at least 12 years. So in the next fleet renewal process, we are going to be looking at pickup truck, because at the time of last purchase, there were no commercial available electric pickup truck that meets our needs. And we are continuing to work with San Mateo County. There's a collaborative efforts with San Mateo County about the availabilities of EV, either sedans or pickup trucks for city use. So we'll continue. We'll bring that back to the city council at a future meeting on our future plan about. So it is our goal to go on full electric vehicle citywide if it's available. And also we need to look at also cost. And based on our current analysis, we believe that actually it's saving us some money. Even the oldest hybrid vehicle that we have in our fleet, the Ford Fusion, the service cost per year is quite a bit lower. It's about 1/3 lower than your typical gasoline power sedan. So it is definitely something that the city will continue to do, especially when we actually going to be adopting our climate action plan in the next few months.
Okay, so Mr. Dunn, just to follow up on that, can you maybe give us a little bit more insight into the, procurement process? And like, let's say, you need a new pickup truck. Is it going to be, a Ford or a Chevy or Toyota or whatever? How do you determine what specific model it's going to be? And is, gas mileage a factor in that?
Definitely. For uniformity purposes, we are actually most of the city vehicle are Ford made. So also for ease of maintenance and also standardizing of the parts that we have to stock, we are buying Ford vehicle for the most part. And we also are part of the California State General Services contract. We are using pre-negotiated prices, but a lot of the time we are actually able to negotiate a better price than what the state contracts listed prices. So those are mostly how we purchase our city fleet. And there's a state website that we go on and we find whatever vehicle that we are seeking and then meets our requirement, and also emission, of course, and gas mileage, and also price.
Okay. All right. So I think with that being said, yes, Mr. Councilman Lee.
If I may ask, I can't see everybody's face, so just see if there's some agreement to looking at restricting our auto purchases to those cars that are meeting or agreed to meet with California emission standards.
That is correct, yes.
I have a comment
I would agree
about
to
Councilman? Mayor? This is
yes,
Ann.
Vice Mayor Schneider.
I'm a little confused. All cars sold in California have to meet California emission standards. However, the federal government has said we can't hold to those standards. Are you talking about making sure that we continue to purchase cars under California standards, even though the feds have tried to shut them down?
Yes, I'm saying that some auto manufacturers have decided not to honor the emission standards that California set out because the president has rescinded California's ability to restrict to set emission standards. So in that respect, I would like to I like our city to do our part, and also it just feels not in the spirit of keeping our fleet clean with electric cars, if we're also buying fleet vehicles that are not meeting the California emission standards.
I agree with Councilman Lee.
So I agree with the concept, Councilman Lee, but I'm not sure if restricting manufacturers is the right way to get there. Like, for example,
no, I'm saying we only buy from the manufacturers who are abiding by the California emission standards.
Okay, well, you mentioned I think there were 4 companies like Ford,
Honda, BMW, and Volkswagen.
Okay, so like, for example, that means we wouldn't be able to buy like a Prius or a Chevy Bolt or something like, Chevy Bolt or something like that. That's an efficient car, but made by a manufacturer that's not in agreement with the voluntary overall fleet mileage.
Well, I mean, that's a good point. Perhaps we can amend that to cars, to plug-in vehicles, hybrid vehicles, and as long as those cars meet the lower emission standards, I think.
Yeah, I think we should be targeting more, by the model as opposed to the manufacturer. Frankly. So I think we should be able to purchase hybrid or electric vehicles from other manufacturers besides those 4.
I think the problem is California is a huge world market, and California is going to sue the federal government and most likely win and get a number of other governments who are moving forward on climate change along with us. So those manufacturers who didn't do the voluntary are still going to be building to our guidelines.
Yeah, it'll be a moot point fairly soon, I would think. But
I agree, not having Prius and some of the other plug-in hybrids.
Or Leaf or others,
Correct.
But at this point, that's not part of our response to the grand jury.
Right.
So can we move forward with a motion to approve the grand jury report response?
I make a motion to approve item item 7.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Lee and a second from Vice Mayor Schneider. Let's do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen,
Aye.
Councilmember Oliva,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Schneider,
Aye.
Mayor Holliver.
Aye.
Item number 7 passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. Now let's move to item number 10, which is the resolution to adopt a list of projects for fiscal year 2020-2021 funded by Senate Bill 1, the Road Repair and Accountability Act of 2017. And I think we do have a presentation or perhaps an announcement regarding this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jane Cow, our Interim Public Works Director, will provide a presentation.
Okay, Ms. Cow.
Jane here, Jane Cow, Public Works Interim Director. So for the fiscal year 2021 Local Streets and Road Program, SB1 RMRE for short, just giving a quick background on SB1, it was passed into law in April 2017. establish a fund that we can use to maintain or rehabilitate our roads, local streets. We usually get about $400,000. So the estimated funding for the coming fiscal year is $437,000. So the program requires that the city adopt a resolution listing all our projects and street schedules and a description of work. So in the previous years, we have listed Sequoia, Taylor, Broadway, Hillcrest, Crestview, Clearview, Hawthorne Way, Laurie Lane, La Mancha, Skyline, and Larkspur Drive. This year, we're adding additional streets, and it's Victoria, Horta del Sol, Menorca Way, Hazel Avenue, Popular Avenue, Palm Avenue, Laurel Avenue, Barclay, El Camino Frontage Road, and a maintenance of streets slurry seal project that's to be determined. We typically list all of our streets on our 5-year plan just to give us flexibility as we move money around and apply the funding. So far in fiscal year 18 till now, we have completed 5 pavement projects, and that included Magnolia Avenue, Millbrae Avenue, Park Boulevard, Hazel, Ashton, Laurel, Old Bayshore, Rollins Road, Bayview Avenue, Bayview Court, Springfield Drive, Hillcrest Boulevard, Valencia Drive, Lake Street, Toyon Drive, part of Broadway. We also did a slurry seal project. That one is 3.22 miles. So in total, we have completed approximately 6.6 miles of roadway improvement the last 2 fiscal years. Here's just a map showing all the completed streets that we've done in the city. And so for upcoming projects, we have Larkspur Drive pavement repair project, and that project is going to be from Crestview to Helen, approximately 0.31 mile long. The status of the project, we are currently in the bidding phase, and bids are due May 1st. And construction is to commence in late summer, early fall, or as early as COVID-19 allows. So we currently have some projects on hold. Sewer replacement work will also happen before paving work, and we typically do this to ensure that we don't go back in and dig up the streets. Another project in the pipeline is various location pavement repair project. We would like to replace the pavement on Sequoia, Hawthorne, and Corte del Sol. We understand Corte del Sol is a priority, and we are going to commence design phase. Anticipate that bid will be in August and construction in September. Sewer replacement will also happen prior to paving work. And this is just a overview of Larkspur and Corte del Sol, and then this is Sequoia and Hawthorne. And that concludes my presentation tonight. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Coe. Yeah, I thought I had seen somewhere that the funding from SB1 was going to be increasing this year, and that I thought the city was going to be getting closer to $1 million, but I could be mistaken. See if I could find where I saw that. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I believe you're correct. I had my hand raised. Sorry.
Okay, yes, Councilwoman Pappen?
I'm not sure how we're working this hand thing.
Go ahead. Yes,
yes, I
yeah,
believe
saw
you're
your hand.
correct. Of course. Yes, sorry. I believe you are correct that the funding for SB1 was going to be increased. Now with the current crisis, hard to tell because a lot of that money from the state comes from the bridge tolls, which are down significantly at this point in time. Yeah, as well as public transit. So your original thought process was correct, but circumstances have changed greatly along those lines. And I ask that this be pulled for discussion, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank staff for being more specific I greatly appreciate that as to the crumbling street on Costa del Sol. It really was bad. So thank you very much for seeing our way. It's been years and years since those residents were promised repair up there. Thank you.
And as for Corte del Sol, will that be done as part of a larger project in terms of trying to get economies of scale and more bidders interested in bidding on the project?
With the current schedule, this is Jane, sorry. With the current schedule, we may be able to use the Larkspur project and do perhaps a change order on that to get better pricing on that, on the work.
Okay. Great. And the Larkspur.
Oops. And can we
Oh,
note
yes.
too, so Mr. Mayor, it's also going to be part of the sewer project because that had
Right.
needed to be done as well. So I think that works out better too. Thank you.
Okay. That sounds great. And then the it sounds like the Larkspur project that would be done. Lost it here. Okay, it's supposed to be completed September of this year, 2020. Correct?
Could I just ask then, Mayor, given the status that we're in, is that work considered essential? Can that construction work go forward at this time, especially Larkspur? But I'll agree, Corte del Sol and Lori Lane also really bad.
I guess that's a question for the city manager or city attorney.
Yeah, I think,
Whether it's essential.
I think the sewer repair work is definitely essential. Sewer main both on Corte del Sol and the work is definitely defined as essential. And then follow that up, obviously the street paving is part of that project. And so, yes, I would conclude that they are essential projects.
Excellent. Thank you.
I just note the most recent shelter-in-place order leaves it to the particular public agency that's undertaking the project. So the city manager is the one that makes that decision.
Yeah, I would think road repair would count as a a public safety type of project. Okay, can we do we have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have
Second.
a motion from Councilman Lee and a second from Councilwoman Pappen. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen,
Aye.
Councilmember Oliva,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Schneider,
Aye.
Mayor Holliver.
Aye.
Item number 10 passed unanimously.
Okay, moving on to item number 12. This is to consider approval of an ordinance regarding safe storage of firearms in residences. Do we have a report, staff report on this? Maybe the city attorney can kind of recap where we were from the previous meeting and where we are now.
Certainly can. We are have brought back to you for your first reading a revised ordinance that we've made a number of changes to the draft that was provided for you at the prior meeting. We've addressed the issue of civil penalties to make that an option. It's not clear to us legally that we can require community service. Require community service as an option, but it is something that would be available if people wanted to do it, and the city manager was amenable to that. We've also made some changes to clarify what are antique guns. There were some questions at the last meeting about that. We found a definition in the federal statute that helps us with that. And so I think otherwise the provisions are set forth in the staff report in terms of any other changes. But I believe we've addressed all of the council's, let me just see if there's, we increased the penalties slightly. I guess one other clarification is the in terms of enforcement, it's going to be the Code Enforcement Division will be the ones that are empowered to enforce it, as well as any peace officer. And then finally, the effective date, we've decided to give us basically a 6-month public education period so that this would not be effective until November 1st.
So yes, Mr. Mayor, just as the city attorney said, adding Title V, Chapter 5.130, say firearms, we reintroduced the ordinance with those changes, the definition of firearms as city attorney said, with the exception for antique and inoperable firearms, modifications to the penalty provisions, noting that each firearm stored in violation of the ordinance and each day that the violation continues does constitute a separate violation. The civil penalties, it's a civil penalty rather than a misdemeanor. Those penalties are $500 for the first violation, $750 for the second violation, and $1,000 for the third violation in any given year. And there is a community service hour provision in the ordinance if people don't pay the civil penalty. And then as the attorney mentioned, the clarification on enforcement, citations and enforcement will be relegated to our code enforcement officers and community preservation specialists. As Chief Kunkel said at the previous meeting, the San Mateo Sheriff's Office and deputies will enforce per state penal code 2510. Mike, I can't see the screen remaining. Because state law also, this is very similar to state laws that are already on the books that our sworn officers will also enforce. And then I want to talk about the effective date. The council had mentioned that you wanted plenty of public education. And so we were thinking 6 months after adoption of the ordinance this evening. So that would be November 1st, 2020. I did receive some feedback from council members that may be too soon given the COVID-19 pandemic. So the council may want to consider 6 months after the pandemic is over. And that would provide us ample opportunity to have neighborhood meetings and community public education and enough time prior to the effective date of the ordinance. And then just lastly, recommendation, review, discuss, consider adoption of the ordinance. I believe we received at least one, I think 2 public comments on this item. And then simply waive the reading beyond the title and introduce the ordinance, adding chapter 5.130, safe firearm storage in residences. So if you have any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, City Manager Williams. I think perhaps just off the bat in terms of the effective date, maybe January 1, 2021 would be a easy date to implement and give plenty of time for education and outreach. Just throwing that out there. We have let's say a comment from Vice Mayor Schneider.
Yeah, I'm happy with everything except the really long time to roll the program out. Both on our elected official briefing phone calls, there's been a discussion of domestic violence and increases in domestic violence, and the fact that the people being hurt, the people on that side that are afraid, have nowhere else to go in shelter at home. On this long-term planning call, we have spent in almost every category discussion of mental health and what might happen to people both in this phase of shelter at home and if we have a second wave, which could come as early as October, which is going to be much more, we think, we're guessing, much more stressful than the first shelter at home. So when I hear that there could be a family under stress, under more stress now, have guns in the home, it scares me. And I would prefer, I understand the need for education, but I don't like extending it to January. I don't like extending it to November. I actually think in the time that we're stuck with each other, and if you're in a household that is really under stress, it's too easy to pull out a gun and you can't get away. At least if it's locked up, there's a little bit more time.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Yeah, and there was also a surge in gun sales before the shelter in place went into effect. So
Well, that would have been my other question.
And,
Can you buy a gun safe locally, or is it yet another profit center for Amazon?
I believe the hardware stores would sell them.
Good.
They're still open. Councilwoman Pappen?
Yeah, can we get the screen down now, the presentation? We can't see everybody's face. There we go. Thank you. There's distinctions here. We're talking about gun locks. That's what this is about. If there is domestic violence involved here, guns are taken immediately removed from the home. So I think I agree with the mayor's thought process here as far as January 1st, because we're only talking about gun locks here. We don't want people to have to either go through Amazon or get in line in San Bruno where the gun sales are going through the roof. That's not the point here. The point is to keep guns safe and locked in a home so that they are not picked up by children or accidentally discharged in any way, shape, or form. Looking online right now at some of these locks here, I would think the best thing we can do is get the sheriff's department to educate people on how these locks work. Some of them look like a bike lock. I don't know. I couldn't understand how they would actually work. So I think we are better served by educating our public on the best type of locks to get, how they can get them through this whole process, and giving them the opportunity not to be suckered in by, just any old lock here. Our goal is to make anybody who has a firearm in the house, make it safe, make it secure, prevent people from stealing them if they break in. Those are the type of laws that we are looking at right now. It's not to remove every gun from every home. That's the Constitution. You got the Second Amendment there. So I would say that I agree with the mayor because we just don't know how long this is going to last. I would hope that we can get on our website some education for our residents that if you have a gun or you have a rifle, these are how these locks work. Please take advantage of this time to get your guns secure and safe within your homes.
Question. First of all, I'm not saying take away people's guns, so let's make that very clear. I don't think you were implying that, but it could have been implied that way. Second, I have direct experience of calling police officers and asking to have guns removed from the home, and they wouldn't remove them from the home, even with a restraining order. So I'm sorry. When you are stuck in a domestic violence situation, it doesn't always work out the way law enforcement thinks it works out. So maybe my request then would be that in this time and in all times, we get better at handling domestic violence cases.
Due respect, Mr. Mayor? Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman Pappen?
Yes, I'm not sure when the vice mayor dealt with this, but current law truly requires that if there is a restraining order, the law enforcement goes out immediately and removes guns from the home. That's not how, I don't know when you dealt with this situation. Domestic violence is always a completely unacceptable part of our society. And I know, having worked in the courts too, that we help people get these restraining orders so that they can get out of there. We have CORA, which allows people to move out of their homes into a secure location. It happens way too often. There's no denying that. But that's not what this piece of legislation is about presently. And so I think we need to stay focused on that aspect of it right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we have Councilman Lee, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that also and I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Snyder, if you had experienced that. I understand that the Moms Against Action that came last meeting made a comment about people who were saying that they were afraid that they weren't going to be able to get access to their guns in time. There are mechanisms, I believe, that makes it so then it's safe to keep away from children, and I guess, but also it allows easy access for the people who know the combination or whatever it is. And I don't know if I don't know if locking up a gun would make anybody feel safer when in a domestic violence issue, which is a different issue. But I think that with education, I agree with a lot of the comments that with education, we could help people have guns at home safely, and but allow people to have access to their guns in a timely manner. Thank you.
Can I ask the city manager? Generally, I support this strongly. However, given how stretched staff is, can we move on education as quickly as possible? And do just what Gina had, our Councilwoman Pappen said. Yes, it should be locks that make sense. And yes, maybe we can keep kids who are now stuck at home in a safer environment if we can move as quickly as we can. Even if the ordinance doesn't take an effect, because clearly I've lost moving it prior to November. And January is a typical time that laws go into effect, but these things are in people's homes now. Can we move quickly on education?
Yeah, I think if the ordinance is adopted this evening, we can work through in partnership with the sheriff's office and other entities to do some online videos and that type of thing during this pandemic. And then if the shelter in place is lifted, we'll evaluate how we can perhaps have other community meetings. But I certainly think that we can move forward with putting something up on our website and having a series of educational videos in terms of the objective, the intent, how to purchase gun locks and safes, and then also how to install gun locks. So yes, we can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Okay.
All
right.
One more question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I was just going to ask quickly for the city clerk, was there any correspondence on this issue?
Mayor Holliber, we received 2 comments on this issue. Would you like me to read them?
Okay. Yeah, well, Councilman Lee, or sorry, Councilwoman Pappen, do you want to give your comment and then we'll go to the public comments?
Yeah, sure. Can we also get up on the website? I mean, a lot of times people inherit weapons they don't longer want. So any information on how they could legally dispose of them would also be helpful to people who, I mean, just guns have been there forever and they don't necessarily want them. So if you wouldn't mind getting that type of information up as well, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, sorry, city clerk.
The first comment is from Jen Sari. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Jen Sari, and I'm a resident of Millbrae. I am a mom, teacher, and a volunteer for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I want to thank this council for moving forward the adoption of safe storage ordinance. I'm thrilled that Millbrae is considering joining other communities in California in requiring firearms to be securely stored and locked. I urge you to approve this ordinance. Thank you. The second comment is from Roberta Jurash. Dear Millbrae City Council, I am writing to show my support for the passage of the safe storage ordinance discussed on March 10th. Every year, almost 350 kids under the age of 18 accidentally shoot themselves or someone else due to unsecured access of guns. Access to unsecured guns also contributes to our high national suicide rate by allowing kids easy access in times of stress. And in regard to gun violence on school grounds, 80% of shooters obtain a gun from their home or from the home of someone they know has an accessible gun. These 3 reasons alone are enough to support the passage of this ordinance. Educating the public regarding safe storage is also a key part of this. Moms Demand Action has a public education program called Be Smart that has been developed for this reason specifically. You can access more information regarding this program at the Be Smart website. We are willing to help with regard to educating the public and in any other way that you can think. Please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you for considering this ordinance. If we can save one life, it will be worth it. And that is the end of the public comment.
Okay, great. And it looks
So
like, sorry, I think there was a comment from the city attorney. Mr. Connery?
I just wanted to note that my colleague Jared Yan has joined us. He did a substantial amount of work in drafting both the gun ordinance and the upcoming eviction ordinance. So I took the liberty, since he didn't have a very long commute to get here, to have him join our meetings.
Okay.
I had one other comment. I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. Williams. The Millbrae motto is "City in the Sun." He seems to be in a place where the sun never goes down. So.
It's always sunny in Millbrae.
There you go. Mr. Mayor, move the ordinance with your amendment, please.
Okay. We have a motion from Councilwoman Pappen. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
A second from Councilwoman Oliva. Let's do a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen,
Yes.
Councilmember Oliva,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schneider,
Aye.
Mayor Holliber.
Aye.
The motion passed unanimously with the amended effective date of January 1st, 2021.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's move on to item 13, just to establish a parking authority within the Millbrae Station Area Specific Plan to oversee, manage, operate, and potentially construct, acquire, and finance public parking facilities in the specific plan area. We have a staff report on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is to consider a resolution establishing a parking authority within the Millbrae Station Area Specific Plan. Just quickly for background, as you may recall, we introduced the concept of creating a parking authority at the March 10th, 2020 City Council meeting. Under California state law, Streets and Highway Code 32651 and 32652, it grants the authority for all cities within California the power to designate a parking authority within their jurisdiction. The city does have a large inventory of parking and spaces in and around downtown, the central business district, and around the multimodal BART station. We have received significant feedback that cars frequently do park longer than allocated in the timeframes, and significant issues that need to be managed, including metered parking, for on-street and our parking lots to increase parking turnover. The improved parking management program and additional inventory is a top priority based on a survey that we had the Economic Vitality Advisory Commission take. And actually, if you recall that survey, it was unanimous that parking and parking management in the downtown area needs to be addressed. So again, the city owns and operates 6 different parking lots. There's 320 parking spaces. Also on street parking within the downtown central business district, there are 673 parking spaces for a total of 993. New plan and development projects will certainly generate the need for additional parking, especially as we look at reducing the amount of parking for residential development projects. The idea of development impact fees contributing to parking and using the public-private partnership opportunities that are available through a parking authority to generate peripheral parking within the downtown is something that we've identified as future project needs. Millbrae is one of the only remaining cities on the peninsula that does not charge for downtown parking. And with that, there is a potential to generate significant revenue from paid parking within the downtown core that could go to improved enhancements related to parking. Again, as I mentioned, the parking authority, if the resolution is adopted under state law, is a separate legal entity. The revenue that's generated from the parking authority can stay within the parking authority and be managed differently than the general fund. The parking authority has the power to dispose and acquire property, to manage, operate, build, develop, contract for surface lots, on-street parking, garages, and other facilities. The authority can acquire property for parking purposes and enter into public-private partnerships, which I think is a significant element that's added to the parking authority, especially as the city builds out in the future. And if needed, the parking authority has the ability to issue revenue bonds. So if we develop parking garages in the future and those are paid for, that revenue can be used and is bondable for development of parking garages and parking facilities. The revenue coming off the paid parking and any leases as well. So the resolution establishing a parking authority within the Millbrae Station Area Specific Plan provides the immediate opportunity for enhancement of our surface lot and on-street parking, such as California, Linden, Sarah Avenue, and the surrounding transit. Again, the need was identified in the Station Area Specific Plan, and then new revenue generation opportunities immediately in lieu of COVID-19, because we all know that the demand for transit has gone down and the demand for parking has decreased. But paid parking, increased enforcement, and allows us to manage the high demand to accommodate turnover and improve available supply. Right now, for example, the surface parking lot just immediately to the west of the Caltrain station is only 2-hour parking, and I think it's 4-hour parking on the street. So we can go in and get meters installed and look at lengthening the parking, perhaps 10-hour parking stalls, 4-hour parking stalls, depending on how we proceed. The next slide, this is just a map of the area for the initial parking study. It follows the Millbrae area, or excuse me, the Transit Area Specific Plan. This is the BART station, BART parking lot. This is Millbrae Avenue, El Camino Real. So this is within the district. We would focus our parking management and parking meter east of El Camino Real as we move forward. So with that, we recommend adopting the resolution to create the parking authority this evening. We'll come back with an actual parking management plan for the surface lots and on-street parking within the district, within the area. And we'll identify other parking opportunities that exist in the stationary specific plan and central business district. I think it's important, and as the council directed March 10th, to have further outreach to downtown merchants and property owners before we amend the resolution and expand the parking authority into the actual downtown and central business district. So with that, Mr. Mayor, council, we're available for questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. And I'm sure this goes without saying, but there would not be parking meters installed until the COVID crisis has receded and things get back more to the normal that we had before COVID-19. Just due to the lack of demand right now, there's not a whole lot of sense for parking meters. It looks like we had go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying, Mayor, real quick on that point. There has to be parking studies done, and then pursuant to the vehicle code, we would have to bring that back actually to the parking authority, which would be the city council with their parking authority hat on for final approval. So there is a.
All right, and it looks like let's start with Vice Mayor Schneider.
I think the city manager answered one of my question was, why don't we just do it all right now? But at the same time, concern on approving the BID. Is it to get the BID done, why we're not looking at Broadway or Park?
No, I think the two are actually, I mean, they're tied together, but they're exclusive on this. I think parking management is separate than the BID actually. Although the parking authority and paid parking will enhance downtown businesses and augment, the parking management and some other areas, but the BID is separate. The BID has actually different function.
Okay. If, for example, we were looking at, let's just say, the city parking lot next to 7-Eleven and trying to get a mixed use with underground or internal parking that might be city owned or some kind of thing, would we need a parking management district for that to make it stronger if we were going out for a design build or a request for qualifications for development or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So to build that out and enter into a public-private partnership, not necessarily. The powers under general law, and Mike Connor can correct me if I'm wrong, allow you to do that. I think by establishing the parking authority, it provides protection to the general fund and to the city, because the parking authority is a separate legal entity. And I think the parking authority and the powers under the parking authority can maneuver and make decisions that can create a separate entity of the city council and general fund. And so I think that that is the benefit that is
I
established.
just hate to see
Parking authority.
staff having to work on this again when it's time for that. But I understand the need to go forward. And if we're not including Broadway, then my question about Trader Joe's, if people can't get to Trader Joe's, they could still park in the Mbimbo lot, right? Even if we had a parking management plan that covered all of Broadway.
Correct. That's a private parking lot that would not be part of the authority under the this action under the parking authority.
All in favor for this. Go forth, do good.
Okay, next we have Councilwoman Pappen.
Yes, thank you. I had two questions. First one is that everybody seems to be making money off parking except the city of Millbrae. So like BART was renting out their spaces, the hotels rent out their spaces. Everybody is taking advantage of parking throughout that area. And I'm wondering, I know BART is like a another agency, but what about the hotels that were renting out to either ride shares or rental car companies? It seems like, you know, like I said, everybody else is taking advantage of
We
that.
receive
And
parking tax on those hotels.
are we getting that? Thank you. Sorry, my apologies, Mr. Mayor.
We do receive a parking tax.
Does that apply though to these rental car companies that they're leasing to, or is it just like a single user? I don't think it applies to the rental car companies.
If they are parking in those lots, then I believe it does. We do collect a parking tax from them. If they're paying to park in the Aloft parking lot, then yes, we do collect the parking tax from them.
Okay, just something we might want to check there. Second question is that if we do, well, we are going to go down this path here. I would really like to make sure if you're getting parking machines that they're easy to use, because some of these cities you go in, you can't read it, you can't access it. It becomes more frustrating than anything. So, you know, bring it to the council, see if we can actually use those machines before you install something that is not user-friendly. That's my primary concern. Thank you.
Excellent point.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Councilman Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like the idea of taking control of our parking. It's been a long time. We have parking studies has shown that when you put in paid parking, people tend to shop more and buy more because they feel they need to get something out of the value of their quarter or their dime. And also it would reduce the amount of cars circling around looking for parking, because right now people squat on their parking spaces. I'd like to also endorse Vice Mayor Schneider's comment about the BID. I wondered if we could expand in the future, and I know you mentioned that, Tom, to expand the parking authority into the park and downtown, but I'd like it to be connected with the BID. So if they agree to have a BID, then we can move forward with the parking authority as kind of a carrot.
Nice way to put it.
Okay. And Councilwoman Oliva?
Yeah, Councilmember Lee, I see that as a little bit differently than you're seeing it. I think that we need to look at this as an enhancement, not hand in hand, because these are like two separate areas that we're talking about. And granted, eventually it'll it'll put this, incorporate the city together. Sorry, my dogs, you guys. But I want to really isolate this from the idea, because this is just the opportunity for us to do something with our parking, and it doesn't have to be downtown. So I'm all for it, but I really don't want to intermix the two ideas.
Yeah, so for example, the revenue that's generated through the parking authority and paid parking can only go towards parking facilities.
Yeah.
Where the BID assessment can go towards beautification, advertising, facade improvements, that type of thing. So they really are kind of mutually exclusive, but yet tied together for the overall vision of building out downtown and the attractiveness of downtown.
The enhancement of everything that we're doing. But
Right.
yeah, so I just want to be cautious of looking at them as two separate items.
Yeah, I think part of the reason why I think the MSASP was the priority here, obviously very different now, but before the pandemic, with BART reducing its parking spaces due to the gateway development, there was a large increase of people parking along California Drive and in that area who are BART commuters, and I can tell you there's no enforcement at all of the 4-hour parking. So there's certainly an opportunity with parking meters to gain a significant amount of revenue, at least in that location, and very few businesses there, so not much outreach that would really need to be done compared to the downtown. Okay, I don't know if there are any additional comments, but I think we got everybody. Do we have was there any public comment, City Clerk?
Mayor Holliburg, we received 2 public comments on this item. Would you like me to read them?
Yes, please.
The first comment is from Nathan Chan. Thank you, Millbrae City Council, for the opportunity to comment. As a driver, nothing frustrates me more than getting to a destination and not having a parking spot. And I'm not talking about not having a spot just outside my destination. I'm talking about having to circle my destination in a radius of 2 blocks or more for 10 minutes or more, looking for a spot to open up, or having to park so far away that driving has become more inconvenient than taking transit or bicycling, which would have been. I'm sure this is something that you and other drivers can relate to. The convenience of having parking available when I need it is definitely something I would be willing to pay for. And since I don't normally drive, I would be willing to pay a lot. I think Millbrae is long overdue for instituting some kind of paid parking system in its public lots and streets. If you are concerned about paid parking hurting those who are less fortunate, please consider that the current shortage of parking probably affects them more severely than those who are better off economically. The cost of parking could be easily mitigated through some kind of parking subsidy or rebate. Please make sure that any metering system includes the ability to pay via a credit card. It's mind-boggling to me that many meters in San Mateo and Burlingame still require paying via change, which almost no one has anymore, let alone keeps in their car because of the risk of car break-ins. Thank you, Nathan Chan. The second comment is from Vince Muzi. Dear Mayor and Council members, I write to endorse your vote tonight for the creation of the proposed Millbrae Parking District. Starting the district within Millbrae Station area, and specifically the original Site 1 area, will allow you to secure for the city all the EIR studied and intended west side uses and benefits of the updated Millbrae Station area plan. Parking is a permitted use that was fully studied in the revised and approved MSASP specific plan. Its creation and application will establish the area of the specific plan where the city will gain immediate power to support development of all the uses in Site 1 that are important to the city. You will also be protecting the specific plan from falling under the unbridled control of outside agencies. Using a West Side garage to lock in approved projects will leave the city in a commanding position, even as it is forced to negotiate with other agencies. A city-approved project incorporating all of Site 1 will quantify the substantial economic cost for the other agencies should they seek to disrupt, acquire, or attempt to unilaterally benefit from taking or participating in the city's approved Site 1 project. In approving the Millbrae Parking District on Site 1, you also will be keeping the promise prior city fathers made to the majority of Millbrae voters, over 60%, who endorsed the creation of a West Side garage in a citywide election in 1997. Their approval of the West Side garage was then seen as a key condition to the city's agreement to accept BART and its impacts on our community. Tonight, you have the opportunity to begin to meet that promise and to achieve all the revised specific plan uses and its many promised economic benefits for the city. The ability of the city to fund the development and building of a West Side garage that can offer the array of specific plan permitted uses for vertical private development above the podium level of the garage should be quite achievable with private funding, especially if done as part of a single project, even in these uncertain times. The garage itself and the project infrastructure could also be funded by using revenue bonds and without compromising the city's full faith and credit and its credit rating. The garage can be a source of city revenue and a way to reduce BART riders' free parking on Millbrae streets. In 1997, I funded a study of the West Side garage on Site 1 by Waytree Design Group. They are still the Bay Area's experts in the design of parking facilities. That study was used by the city in developing its concept for the West Side garage. In recent weeks, I have gone back to Waytree and my architects, and they have developed studies that show that it is feasible to develop up to 2,840 plus or minus parking spaces on 3 levels below El Camino's grade to accommodate vertically the needs of all the specific plans uses above the garage roof from the podium level up to the SFO and city height and design limits. We are prepared at any time to present these studies to the council at a public study session. With a parking district West Side garage, the city will have a market-ready opportunity to effectively achieve the development of the specific plans promise that will serve all the specific plan uses for the long-term civil and economic benefits of all of Millbrae. Please approve the Millbrae Parking District. Respectfully, Vince Musi. And that is the end of the public comments.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilwoman Pappen and a second from Vice Mayor Schneider. Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen,
Aye.
Councilmember Oliva,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Schneider,
Aye.
Mayor Holliber.
Aye.
The motion passed unanimously.
Okay, moving on to item number 14. This is a motion to consider approval of an urgency ordinance establishing a moratorium on eviction for non-payment of rent by small commercial tenants impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. And it looks like we have a staff report.
I think Tom was going to start.
Yeah, so commencing on March 3rd, 2020, there have been several emergency declarations and shelter-in-place orders. The current order requires all San Mateo County residents to shelter in place through May 3rd, 2020. And then on March 19th, 2020, the city of Millbrae declared a local emergency pursuant to Government Code 855 and Millbrae Municipal Code Chapter 2.25. As you all know, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has been staggering, causing businesses to shut down, layoffs, furloughs, and loss of income and other revenues. San Mateo County adopted recently a moratorium on all residential evictions throughout the county, which included all municipalities. But a moratorium that they adopted on commercial evictions only covers the unincorporated county area, not the incorporated municipal areas of the county. So most cities throughout San Mateo County have either already adopted or are in the process of adopting a local moratorium on the commercial evictions through the COVID-19 pandemic and orders. I sent the council earlier today, for example, the city of Pacifica just adopted a similar ordinance at their city council meeting last night. And I believe South San Francisco, Redwood City, San Mateo, and Burlingame have it. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mike Conneran, city attorney, to take us through the bulk of the presentation of the urgency ordinance.
Thank you, Tom. I just note that really from the time of the first health order issued on March 16th, we've been participating with county council and many of the city attorneys in the county in discussions about putting these measures like this into effect, and have been comparing notes. I just explained the county took the action with regard to residential evictions because it felt they were closely related to the health officer's order, and that the thought of putting people on the street at a time like this was just unacceptable. And so they felt they had the authority, the county had the authority to act and impose that rule on all cities in the county. It's a little different with the commercial evictions. It does affect the health and welfare of the city, but it's more of an economic regulation. So the county deferred taking action with regard to commercial evictions outside of the unincorporated area that it controls. Nevertheless, I mean, there's a need on the countywide basis to protect small commercial tenants who, you know, obviously have been badly hurt, both by lost business, but also by increased costs and having to respond and disinfecting things and taking other measures to support safety. So certainly in the public interest to help those businesses. The ones essential services are operating, but they're probably not anywhere near the volume that they were. And then many other businesses, including restaurants and bars, have closed completely, except for perhaps takeout food. The city has legal authority under the government code to adopt and that's 36937 to adopt an urgency ordinance. It takes a 4/5 vote. There's no second reading. You adopt it tonight and it takes immediate effect. One of the legal questions, normally cities don't have a significant ability to regulate evictions, but the governor specifically paved the way for that in one of their orders that basically lifted the idea of preemption. So cities are free to adopt that. That period extends through the end of whatever, well, right now it's through May 31st, but we expect that it would be extended. So the next issue, I guess, on the urgency ordinance, what we're doing with this is it's going to prohibit an owner of commercial property from evicting a small business commercial tenant for non-payment of rent, not for other reasons, non-payment of rent, if their inability to do that is due to either decrease in business or as other reasons directly from the COVID pandemic. It protects, decided a good number is 5 million. I think the mayor helped come up with that. The county is limited theirs to 2.5 million, but that is, they have a lot of smaller businesses and the county. City of San Mateo went up to 25 million. I think that's much too high. I think the idea here is to protect the smaller business. The way it works is prior to evicting somebody, the landlord would need to make them aware of this program. That's one way to make sure people aren't caught unaware. So if they tried to evict someone without informing them of the program and giving them the availability of claiming that they are suffering from a loss of business due to the pandemic, it would not be an effective eviction. And what we're creating is really a grace period of up to 180 days in which they can come current on their rent. We are not giving anybody a rent holiday. Every dollar of rent that is due is going to need to be paid. I feel very uncomfortable with the city, wanting to go that far. And we're going to encourage tenants to pay within days if they're able to do so. Let's see. So you're on to the next slide. The recommendation tonight is that you review, discuss, and consider adopting the ordinance. I know there's at least one public comment. You should hear that. And then the ordinance would require a vote. I just wanted to make one other comment. The other player in this has been the Judicial Council, which has put a 90-day ban in place. And that 90-day period starts with the end of any emergency that has been declared by the governor. So right now that's May 31st, but if the governor extends the state of emergency, the 90-day period wouldn't start until after that ends. It prohibits the issuance of a summons with regard to unlawful detainer or eviction actions. It prohibits the issuance of a summons by the court. So you basically can't start a lawsuit to evict someone. It would be for 90 days after the emergency ends. And you might ask, well, if that's the case, why do our own ordinance that affects us? And I think the concern is that upon that 91st day, you might very well have a whole slew of evictions, and that could have a real deleterious effect on your downtown commerce. I think the idea is to try to get everyone through this, keep the existing tenants, give them a shot to stay in business and to stay in place, and yet not get the city too much involved in the relationship between the landlords and the small commercial tenants. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Assistant City Attorney Conran, on your work on this. We have let's see, comment from Vice Mayor Schneider.
Again, this is referring back to the 30, 60, 90-day long-term planning discussion. What's being explained, and this is both residential back rent and commercial back rent, is how difficult it might be for a number of our tenants, commercial or residential, to come up with that when they're not working or when they're not getting that kind of money. So that's high on the list of long-term planning, how to cover that period, because you could come out of the 90 days or 180 days and be 6 months in arrears and not have the revenue to do that. So I just want the public to know that under the county task force, they are looking at how we might collectively as a society help with that. There's no answers right now. And then I think Councilwoman Oliva had a question on our council briefing, if not yesterday, then what day is it? Tuesday, on Monday. But I think there is investigation into either forgivable loans or grants. I know that at least 2 restaurateurs here in town have told me that given that they've reduced staff and they are working like crazy, they're switching their business model, they don't have the time to fill out the county paperwork. So that was also discussed on the long-term planning call, is how can we get more people to help our various restaurants, some who may have language issues, to be able to fill out the paperwork to get the assistance. So again, to all of you out there struggling right now, the county is trying to put together programs to assist you. It's just going to take a little more time.
Okay. Councilwoman Pappen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Point 1, anybody watching on TV, our restaurants many of them are open, and please take advantage of that and put your takeout orders in, because they're really on the line there. I view this as a very important step in our recovery, whenever that may be. We have to give our businesses a step up to recovery, and this is one way to do that. So I do support this, because we need to be working hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, to recover from this unprecedented challenge that has been put before us. All of the businesses throughout the city of Millbrae definitely need help. And I think I am not sure, I know city staff have been getting some calls. I've reached out to some businesses. We need to know which businesses really are struggling there. My dry cleaners, I hear, is struggling, but we're not getting that information, and we want to be helpful. So, you know, if I'm willing to put down a deposit for dry cleaning in the future, that might be helpful to some of these businesses. Different ways that we can assist our businesses. I think City Manager Williams can help us here. Who's contacted City Hall? The Chamber of Commerce was unavailable for an exceptionally long time as far as email and returning calls. They weren't even working with SAMCETA here. So it's concerning to me that we need to get our businesses aligned so that they have the opportunity to recover. If they need assistance in dealing with their landlords, somehow we need to step up and help our businesses through this critical time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Oliva?
Thank you. So one question for Michael is, when you said that the landlords need to advise the tenants, is that a mandatory as it was in the residential? Is that something that everybody that has a tenant, commercial tenant in Millbrae needs to do to their tenants?
Only if they're going to take action with regard to an eviction.
Only for, so not with regards to
Not everyone.
Okay. And then just a 2 cents of it, maybe my 2 cents of advice on how to deal with this if you are having trouble with paying rent. I think the best way, and I think the county has initiated the same idea, is landlord to tenants to work it out that way. Because so many of our tenants, and sorry, Ruben, so many of our tenants and both commercial and residential are obviously having hard times making rents meet. But I think you could work it out with your landlord or property manager to work it out with your landlord. That is the best solution going forward. So I just wanted to plug that in for a second. And sorry, one more point to Councilmember Schneider's comment with regards to the loans and the grants and the aids that are out there. They're incredibly difficult, and the application is a piece of cake. It's getting the application where it needs to be. And SAMCETA has been amazing. And after the Zoom calls, as an individual, I reached out, and they have been incredibly helpful. So, like you said, the help is on its way. I'm not so sure that people have the time, so we need to be very sensitive to. It has been 30 days, and for many businesses, 30 days is a lifetime. So we have to be very, very sensitive. And I know that the landlords would prefer to work with who's there than to have a vacancy. So that would be my 2 cents of advice, to please reach out to who you're working with initially.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's always the preferred course of action, is to have these issues worked out between the landlord and tenant. And this is really kind of a last line of defense that we're looking to provide here. Councilman Lee?
Yeah, I would just like to ask staff to make sure we get all the information out as quickly as possible, as many avenues as possible. All the comments from our council members are very important. And just want to really emphasize the fact that our city is very tied to our businesses here. We have such a small business footprint that every business makes a huge difference to our bottom line. And we're not unique from other cities, but because of our situation, our budget could be cut, will be probably cut pretty severely due to the lack of hotel rentals and also our businesses. So if you can help out by shopping and eating at our businesses, you would not only make yourself a little happy to get out and get some food. You could help the business, and you can help your own city and your own services, because we're looking at some drastic. We're going to be looking at some drastic cuts for next coming years.
Okay, yeah, and just as to how this came about, there was a conference call between the various mayors throughout San Mateo County, as well as a couple members of the Board of Supervisors and the county manager and county council. And there was some discussion. They were looking into perhaps having the county ordinance cover the cities as well, similar to how the residential eviction moratorium was drafted. And I think it was the preference of many, mayors, myself included, to have that be done through the county, since it does relate directly to the county's health order and deeming certain types of businesses as inessential and therefore inoperable during this time. Unfortunately, they disagreed with that, and their legal counsel preferred it only to cover the unincorporated areas. But I think it's important that we're taking this action. The small businesses really are, the lifeblood of Millbrae's business community and economic base here. Okay, and City Clerk, I think we have at least one.
One quick question.
Slip. Yes, Councilman Pappen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we are being consistent, though, as far as how our ordinance is set up with the other cities and the county. Is that correct? Just kind of operationally speaking, the less confusion these days, the better?
Yes, I'll let Jared answer. Jared spent a lot of time on this, starting, I think, late Thursday to get this ready, and then getting it out in the packet, and then getting a legal opinion ready for today. So, Jared, you want to comment on sort of the process of how we put this together?
Sure. So I think our ordinance, or our proposed ordinance, is based strongly on the city of San Mateo and also the county's ordinance. So there are some variations, such as to whom the ordinance applies and what procedural mechanisms are available, but the same basic scope applies across the board.
And I don't say it sort of follows the residential ordinance adopted by the county, right? In terms, and I was there when it was sort of worked out in terms of how do we make sure the tenants are aware of this situation, because if they just get, they're not necessarily going to know if they get an eviction notice that they have rights. So it was a very good thought. I don't remember who did it, that you put the requirement, if you're going to give a notice about an eviction, you also have to tell the people about the availability of the program. So I also just want to really acknowledge County Council through all of this, and the County Health Officer in terms of putting this together, and the work that went into the initial health order was really stellar, and it's held up over time. So this is just a little step in implementing that larger scheme, but I think we can just tell by looking in the newspapers we've done a great job in this area as far as it's gone.
Great, and thank you for all the hard work on this. Yes, Vice Mayor Schneider.
I'm sorry, I meant to also thank staff. It's hard to believe it's been a couple of, or maybe a month now, but staff at multiple levels, but I think a lot of it came out of community development, maybe finance, who reached out to our restaurants and our other businesses to find out what their operating hours were, how they were converting over. I don't know if we were the first city to do it, but I think we were amongst the leaders. So just thank you, staff, for that. To the business community that might be watching, I think one of the ways we can help our restaurants now is if we can get you into some of the bulk ordering, which I've heard examples and I'm going blank on. But if you're a business out there, feel free to reach out to any of your elected officials or staff. So if there's some other ways that we can collectively try to drive business to you, let us know what those ideas are.
Okay.
If I may, just real quick here, I think one of the most important things, and we will absolutely get this word out to our businesses when we are and continue. San Mateo Strong has unveiled, as I mentioned earlier, their online application. They realize that there's been difficulty, and so improving the ease, they have a partnership now with San Mateo Credit Union. You do not have to be a member of the credit union They're $10,000 grants, not loans, but grants for each business. They're for small businesses. So again, $2.5 million of gross revenue. And you have to prove a 25% reduction due to COVID-19. That's $10,000 immediately available as a grant through San Mateo Strong and an online application through San Mateo Credit Union. So we will get that word out. We'll continue to get the word out to all of our businesses. And I think that that is a very effective, immediate, place to get immediate help, and ideally suited for our types of businesses here in the city of Millbrae.
Okay. Yeah, great. Thank you, Mr.
So,
Williams.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilwoman Pappen, and then we'll go to the city clerk for public comments.
Thank you. And the most important thing is we get this up on our website as quickly as possible. So I hope that anybody who's there can make that happen. And I'd also like to point out too, I understand Salesforce is also giving out loans to help businesses carry through. So they are out there and we want to help. So whether it's Samsita has a wonderful, they've done amazing efforts in this realm, and city staff and our council, thank you very, very much. This is the only way we're going to help through recovery. So thank you.
Okay, great. And city clerk, for the public comment, please.
We have one comment from Yo-Yo Zoo. Council members, businesses are suffering like never before and need urgent protections against unscrupulous landlords in this perilous time. Small businesses are built by hardworking Americans through numerous sacrifices over the course of many years. An eviction proceeding threatens to destroy everything that a business owner has worked for and is often a David versus Goliath situation. I believe I speak for all small business owners in Millbrae when I say that this temporary protection is urgently needed and should be enacted as soon as possible by the city. I encourage the review of Section 3, Paragraph D, which fails to fully capture the scope of rent, which often includes escalation rent, triple net expenses, interest, and late fees. These extra charges are used often by greedy landlords to find excuses down the road to initiate eviction proceedings. Airtight language in this ordinance will protect renters to a greater degree. Thank you. And that is the end of public comment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mazo. Do we have a motion to approve the ordinance?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilwoman Pappen and a second from Councilman Lee. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Lee,
It's that nasty mute button.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Pappen,
Aye.
Councilmember Oliva, Councilmember Oliva,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Schneider,
Aye.
Mayor Halber.
Aye.
Item 14 passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you. And just a point of clarification, since this is an urgency ordinance, I believe it would go into effect immediately. Is that correct, City Attorney?
Correct.
Yes, it goes into effect right away. The city clerk does need to publish it in its full text. So that's going to cost a little bit, but yes, it takes effect right away. Thanks to the
Okay, and maybe we can go through council comments very briefly. It's getting late. We start with Councilman Lee, please.
Yes, briefly, there's an opening for an advisory board on the Peninsula Clean Energy. Just go to Google Peninsula Clean Energy and apply online. And at the last ABAG meeting, they went over the housing analysis, meaning that it's part of the study to figure out how much housing is needed in every city, and that affects the RENA number the regional housing needs assessment or allocations. And then, but in part of that discussion, they didn't really address, they acknowledged there's an issue with COVID-19, but they didn't address COVID-19. And they assumed that the economy would recover very quickly. And we pointed out that that's not probably going to be the case. This is a very deep recession. It's bad as it's almost as deep as the Great Depression. It's going to take some time for us to recover. In the 2008 stock market housing crisis, that took the market 5 years to recover. So we all said that not all of us, but many of us on the board thought that maybe they should neither extend the study to wait to see what the effects of COVID-19 will be on the effect of available housing, or adjust the numbers, because what's gonna happen is that because there's a lot of cities are looking at laying off staff because of the decrease in revenues, that's going to hinder cities' abilities to plan and review plans and developments, and that will slow down the housing, the opportunity to build housing. And also a lot of legislations that will address housing are probably going to be put on the back burner because of the need to recover the economy as his first priority. With that, a lot of meetings were canceled. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilwoman Pappen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Several things real quick. Number one, the county is offering a transportation service. If anybody needs COVID testing, you can get a ride to the testing facility. That phone number is 650-779-9375. The number one issue at this point in time is still the availability of testing, and the county is working on that as quickly as possible to get a hold of the testing kits and get more people tested that need testing right now. The healthcare presentation, our Peninsula Healthcare District, that was a wonderful presentation. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Millbrae is again open for business, so please, everybody, get out there and shop where you can. And the senior wellness checks is important, what the city's doing, but I myself, and I know several other people, call your elderly neighbors to make sure they're okay, see if they need anything. They are sheltering in place, but sometimes they're going to need a little extra assistance. We are still pursuing the work with the Grocery Association, so hopefully we can work out something along those lines. And the Metropolitan Transportation Commission is still meeting, so the decrease in transit is never before seen. Ridership at BART is down like 93%, similarly with Caltrain and Samtrans. So they are looking to recover in different ways. I know the BART board is still looking at how they're going to be cleaning the trains. They weren't cleaning them that often. So hopefully they will be cleaning them daily because of the current situation. And I will say the last CCAG meeting, Millbrae got funding for some very, very important projects. And so we're very, very excited about that. One is $39 million to study a station at Millbrae, and the city gets to determine what type of station. So that hopefully will be very beneficial to the city of Millbrae, along with a lot of other funding that will be going through MTC and continuing to hopefully help Millbrae through this process and get some recognition of what our city's desires are, as opposed to other transit agencies. Also continuing to work with the seamless transportation, the seamless representatives, Assemblymember Chu is leading that along with Assemblymember Kevin Mullen. So an email came out today. I'll try to share it with the council. I know our council has already approved the principles of seamless transportation, but we may need to take that a step further since we are the largest intermodal center west of the Mississippi, and that could be a key to our recovery. So I thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Everybody, please stay safe, and thank you to everybody at City Hall keeping things moving along. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Oliva?
Thank you. So as regards to the Sheriff's Activity League, their fundraiser has been postponed, which would be coming up right around the corner, and more to come, and how we'll work with that. They have the kids out on the out in the community helping out with whatever they can help out with in the various areas, and doing what they can do best. Of course, we haven't met in person. Heart also, their fundraiser is coming up around the corner. Right now is the time that they do their fundraising for the event. So we'll have a strategic meeting tomorrow, or Thursday actually, for that, to figure out how we're going to go about asking and getting everybody that has in the past donated for such a great cause there on that, and see what they can do to raise some money there. Mackenzie from our rec center, thank you for helping me and helping others get the neighborhoods out. Our neighborhood gets out every day at 5 o'clock, play some music, go outside, check. We have, I live in a pretty senior neighborhood with a lot of 4- and 5-year-olds around, and it seems like we could all figure out our distance and have some fun at 5 o'clock. And Mackenzie put together a couple of fun ideas on I guess it was the website and on Facebook and a few things. And I thank you very much for that. It was fun. All the neighbors had nothing but good things to say about that. I am a small business owner and I'm feeling the effects. I am not essential. And I have 6 Millbrae residents that work in our office that are all suffering through these times. And I'm working super diligently to figure out these loans and these grants, and they're not easy, but I'm determined that I'm going to become the expert on this. So if anybody out there has any good tips for me to put into place, and I'll share mine as well. I'm hoping that everybody will be able to make it through these tough times. And yes, in the housing market, we fell hard and we got up quick in 5 years, and I'm hoping it doesn't take 5 years from this. But anybody that wants help or wants to put their heads together with those grants and loans, I'd like to help out whatever I can. And I have been pretty aggressive with reaching out to anybody in the county and federally as well, and the banks, to see how I could help any of those small businesses, including my own people in my company. You guys, I just want to say one last comment, that I'm super proud to be a part of the team, be it staff, be it electives, part of Millbrae. Man, you guys are awesome. Every phone call I've been on, everybody's been right on it, rolling up their sleeves, whether it's the Peninsula Healthcare, or whether it's the staff, or whether it's you guys, my council members. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this and being somebody that is struggling like the rest of you and the rest of our constituents, but being able to lead and take the time and get the knowledge from everybody's forte. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for those comments. Vice Mayor Schneider?
Okay, let me start with Councilwoman Oliva. The conversation today was how to best use our volunteers, one of the conversations today on long-term planning, but Mayor Muller from Menlo Park, who's also works for this company that the county has contracted with, said what he thinks, and I love this idea, is to find people who are technically laid off, and it sounds like your staff and you, you have experience with contracts. You would be perfect in helping other businesses apply for things, and you would get paid for it too. So let me make sure that I pass along that we've got a lot of realtors out there that aren't doing a lot of work right now, but no contracts and that technical jargon language. So thank you.
There's 3,000 realtors in San Mateo County, of which are not allowed to work right now.
Well, that's the direction that Ray Mueller suggested when we were talking about volunteers. And I think it's a great one. We take our people who aren't working right now and we use them for some kind of pay. I don't know what the pay will be, but to help other people get those grants and those loans that they need to do. With that, I have spent most of the last 2 days on 7 workshops. The county has hired a company called IEM. They're out of North Carolina. They're a disaster recovery and disaster preparedness company. They actually, it's been a really interesting process to learn how they're doing it. But these are the 7 categories they've been mentioned on the briefing, but I want the public to know that the questions that I see popping up on Nextdoor or in other social media, the county's trying to address them out of these 7 areas. So the first one is, how are we going to handle a secondary disaster while we're sheltering in place? So a fire, an earthquake. I'm not too worried about floods right now, but earthquake, fire, or a power shutoff if we are still sheltering in place. That's one of the categories. There's another group working on education and childcare. There's a third working on economic recovery. There's a fourth on delivering resources to people sheltering in place. So especially those most at-risk populations or people who just, the car broke down and they can't get out to get food. So how can we get things to people? There's planning for underserved populations and equity, which includes the homeless category. And then preparing for the second wave, something none of us want to think about, but the second wave could come. They've got professionals who've dealt with other pandemics, and they've pretty much said that there is usually always a second wave. The question is, how will we respond in a second wave and be better prepared for it? And then finally, which the governor has talked about, which the governor of New York is talking about, is what are the triggers for lifting sheltering in place and which businesses would come back? So the perception is not everything is going to be all normal the next day. There'll be a rollout of one way or the other. What happened is they basically took a brain dump from those of us who were chosen to be on this committee. And it was some elected, some city managers, some people, now that was mainly this group. They were lacking Red Cross volunteers, but some of us wear multiple hats. In fact, many of the people on this committee wear multiple hats. They plan on getting all of this written up by Monday, which seems like a really fast turnaround because there were all kinds of areas and issues. But for the rest of, for my fellow elected officials, the goal is to try to put the data in such a way as to help elected officials make policy decisions. And that's how I think all of this is going to work out. And more to come. And what we came up with over the last 7 workshops, or 10 and a half hours of brain dumping, there'll still be other opportunities to add to it. So it's not a done deal right now. I'm going to flip to a new area. Just got an updated budget for the Emergency Services Council. Typically we'd be meeting next week, but now they're putting a budget meeting in. City manager, I assume you already know this, but if we are tracking to the best degree possible any of the expenses that we can get reimbursed from FEMA, the better, more organized we are. I worry that FEMA's got to be funding the entire United States of America all at once, and how much money is there actually there? So the better organized and the sooner we're in the queue is probably the better for us. But I would imagine we'll be looking at a budget increase for emergency services. I also think most of it will be reimbursable, even if it might take a year or 2 to get that reimbursed. Sometimes the FEMA reimbursements from disasters take quite a while to get back. So, and then the next, I just got it just before council tonight. Our April meeting, I think, has been moved to June. So, but be aware that there'll be some more money items coming in. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Senator Hill hosted a meeting regarding homeless individuals coming off of BART. He hosted it with Assembly Member, it was a Zoom meeting with Assembly Member Mullen, Supervisor Pine, Councilwoman Pappen, and myself, and some other officials, Tom and Chief Kunkel, and some county officials on the line as well with BART. There were some good ideas that were brought up. One of the few commitments that BART made was that they will be making announcements on the last train of the evening that the train is not coming back. The train ends in Millbrae. From our understanding, many of the transients that come off of BART, they like to stop in Millbrae, and they it's peaceful, it's quiet for them, but it's not where they ultimately want to be. They either want to go back to San Francisco, where they want to be left alone. They really don't want services within San Mateo County. So over the next few weeks, our staff is going to be working with BART and with the county staff to try to develop some solutions for how we get homeless transient individuals to where they want to go. Perhaps also engaging with BART ambassadors and BART PD to engage with those passengers on the train, so they don't just, in case they're asleep or whatnot, they don't just wake up in Millbrae and are kicked off. It's really not the most humanitarian way of dealing with the problem. We'll be reconvening in early May to discuss those solutions and see how things are going. Of course, BART ridership is down significantly, but there is still a fair amount of homeless individuals, and with the current health crisis, there's really nowhere for them to go if they just get off the train at the end of the line. Also, I had mentioned a couple months ago that the 101 Alamany project in San Francisco, which was slated to happen in July, it was going to be a major disruptive project. However, it's due to the COVID-19 and due to the significant reduction in highway traffic, they're moving that project up. It's now going to begin April 25th. So pretty much as minimal impact as it can be. And hopefully when things get back to normal, that will be complete. I think that's about all that I have. All the other meetings have been canceled since then. Also, make sure you fill out the census. We will keep you in the loop of any changes to the timeline, but there's certainly no harm in filling it out, even if there is a delay and a postponement of the deadline. So with that, we will adjourn, and our next council meeting is scheduled for April 28th, 2020. I think this platform worked about as well as we could have expected, and we'll look to do that again for our next council meeting. So I wish everybody stay safe and stay healthy, and try to get outside and get some fresh air when you can, but maintain a safe distance from all others when you do. So thank you all, and we will adjourn, and I'll see you back on the 28th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.